Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. Before we get started with this week's episode of Keeping It Strong Style, we just wanted to talk about John Huber, better known to wrestling fans as Brody Lee, and Luke Harper, passing away this weekend, 41 years old. It's a tragic thing, man. 41, way too young to go, had a wife, kids, was just finally getting that real breakout moment that he was looking for, dying of a lung issue not related to COVID, having to go to the Mayo Clinic. Apparently this kind of came on not too long after, dropping the TNT title to Cody. And the AEW family kind of respecting the family's privacy and keep it closer to the vest. And yeah, this was just an unexpected, crazy thing.
Yeah. I don't know the last time that a wrestling death really has hit me the way that this one with Brody really has. And I'm not even really sure what it is specifically. I think some of the elements you mentioned there, Jeremy, the fact that he was so young, the fact that he does have a family, that it seems so untimely and that it was so sudden. And, obviously there were people who knew about his condition, but the general audience, we knew that there was something going on behind the scenes because there's reports of an injury or a condition, but nobody knew the severity of this situation. And so that's one of the biggest things. But I think part of why this, for me at least, and obviously a lot of other people, because I can't remember the last time an outpouring on social media when a member of the wrestling community passed away has been so pronounced. Just to kind of keep it short, I guess for me, part of it is just seeing this guy who, by all accounts, really, really, really loved wrestling. You could tell through his work. And, I mean, he's somebody that, us here at Social Suplex, we've been big fans of for a long time. I remember for years us discussing how, he was the one guy in the Wyatt family that was worth a damn.
Yeah.
And we were always big fans of his work. And, it was always bewildering why he wasn't kind of utilized in a more appropriate way, because to me he had star written all over him, and then to finally see him get his chance to leave and do it on his own terms, and then to see him succeed was I don't know, I kind of felt like, for me as a fan, we were there from the beginning, and then to kind of see him get his just due and see him secure the bag and everything like that, it was something that I was really proud of for him. And then right when it's all happening, to just see it end so quickly, I don't know, man, it kind of messed me up a lot when I first heard about this whole thing. And it's a tragic loss. It's really affected the wrestlers, the people in the wrestling community, anybody that has, I know you don't talk ill of the dead, but it seems that nobody has anything ill to say of him, but people are more than happy to share the great things he's done behind the closed doors, the funny stories, the anecdotes, how charitable he was as a person, how giving he was in the wrestling community. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was definitely a devastating loss. And yeah, like you mentioned, just all the great stories and memories being poured on Twitter. It's been great to see all that stuff. And he's just a guy who deserved the world. First time I saw him was in Ring of Honor doing the HD Net days, and just kind of watching him climb the ranks there, and then eventually going to WWE, and then now to AEW. There's just so much more left for him to do. He talked about wanting to go to New Japan. We're never going to get that. He was supposed to make his big debut in his hometown for AEW. Never got that pop. Never got a real AEW full arena crowd during his run there, which is just sad, because the AEW fans, a full audience would have, just ate his whole act up. And so, yeah, he just deserved the world, and, so many things that he should have been able to accomplish, and so many things left to do he's not going to be able to do, and it's just really sad. And so, yes, it's a tough loss. You know, AEW is going to be honoring him by the time you guys hear this tonight. Wednesday Night Dynamite, a card book, especially for a lot of the guys that he worked with, and for his son, Brody Jr., or -1 of the Dark Order, as they're calling him. It's going to be a lot of matches featuring his favorites and just people that Brody worked with. So,
one last thing, and I guess I'll leave it at this on my end. I think one of the reasons, too, that it's so affecting is, 41 is not that far off from our ages. It's not like a whole nother generation or anything like that. And if you've ever heard Brody Lee talk about wrestling history, any of the interviews he did, I mean, it was very apparent that he had a deep, deep passion for the wrestling industry. And I think you could kind of see a lot of yourself in him if you're within this certain age range, and it's not hard to identify with somebody that, aspired for more, I think a lot of people feel that way. And, to see somebody succeed in spite of the perceptions that kind of go against them, and see them persevere was something that I think was pretty awesome. And like you said, there were a lot of things he still could have accomplished, but I mean everything that he did, I think his legacy is gonna far outreach what maybe he himself would have realized he would have left behind, unfortunately. So yeah, I think Brody Lee is gonna leave a big hole, in this wrestling industry, and like I said, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, still wrapping my mind around the whole situation.
Yeah, because it doesn't feel real.
Yeah, I'm waiting to just wake up from it and just be like, it was a bad dream. Like Brody, he's gonna be on Dynamite tomorrow, but fortunately that's not the case. So condolences to his family, thoughts and prayers with them, and just supporting them during this difficult time.
And we will be back shortly here in a moment.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hello, this is Zack Sabre Jr., New Japan Cup winner 2018. And you're listening to Keeping It Strong Style with my mates. Enjoy.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith and Chris Samsa. On today's show, we'll be previewing Wrestle Kingdom 15, answering your questions, and covering all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing to Social Suplex Podcast Network or to Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You also get all the podcasts and columns over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, ProWrestlingTees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And this week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It will take NJPW World to the next level. Visit njpwext.us today for details. And like you heard in the intro, we are joined by Chris Samsa from SportProWrestling.com and VoicesOfWrestling.com. Chris, how you doing, man?
Hey, I am good. I am stoked to be here and talk about the upcoming Wrestle Kingdom. It is Tokyo Dome season. Let's get it.
Sam said, "How I've missed your voice. The voice behind the stats." Acting like I haven't. We didn't just talk for 10 minutes before we got on there.
Right.
Listen, no one needs the curtain raised on that.
Dude, Josh loves to pull, the curtains open for the fans.
Oh, that's because
Why can't you act like I just dialed in? I'm finally here. I totally big leagued you, and like Jeremy just finished the intro, and I'm just like walking through the curtain.
Well, A, I am a curtain jerker, but B, you definitely did big league us because you showed up late to this.
Yo, I haven't done audio since the G1, and I've got this new office setup situation here because my wife needed a desk in the office because we're getting our kitchen remodeled, and that just took over the whole rest of the house. So I was like, oh yeah, that's right. My microphone's not anywhere near me, so I got to get this whole thing squared away. So I'm back in my element. I'm ready to do. This is my first Wrestle Kingdom audio of this year's preview tour, as I like to call it. And so you guys get it all here first. As always, I feel like I always get to jump in with you guys before I do anything else. So you're the test dummies, if you will.
You get the freshest takes here from Chris on his episode, so you can listen back to all his other stuff and be like, well, he said something completely different on Keeping It Strong Style.
No, by the end of it, you'll be like, he's so tired. Why does he do this to himself? Just trying to make friends around here.
Well, we're happy to have you back, man, and happy, it's Wrestle Kingdom season. We'll be breaking down both nights here. But I think first we've got to touch on what's going on in Tokyo with the COVID outbreak. There was an all-time record of 888 cases, which is laughable compared to what's going on here in the U.S. But that's big for what's going on in Tokyo. 888 cases on December 23rd, until the government is requesting no events take place with more than 5,000 fans. So I know a lot of people kind of had questions what was going to happen with Wrestle Kingdom. New Japan put out a statement saying, in light of restrictions imposed on large-scale events in Tokyo, no further ticket sales will be sold for either night of Varsum Presents Wrestle Kingdom 15, January 4th and 5th, 2021. As of Tuesday, December 29th, there will be no event day tickets sold for the event. So pretty much any tickets they've already sold are good. But yeah, no walk-up sales, and no, they're not going to hit that 20,000 cap that they were expecting to hit for both nights.
I think one of the kind of confusing things for me was I read several different reports, and granted they were all in Japanese, so it was there was kind of bad translations or conflicting information. But in one of them I saw that they were saying it was 5,000, that's the cap, and if they'd already pre-sold, and not speaking of New Japan, but they talked about other football leagues and things like that, if they'd already sold more than 5,000, they were saying that they were going to have to refund a portion of it. But then it looks like for some reason New Japan's not having to do that. I don't know. I think from what I understand, they're not that far over the cap anyways, somewhere between 5 and 9K, something like that, for each night. But yeah, it's capped at this point, and it's done. Whatever it is, that's what it is.
Yeah, I heard better than that. It's the last kind of I heard just over 11,000 at least for the first night, which is, I guess good considering the circumstances. It's gonna be a different environment clearly, but I don't think it's anything kind of out of their norm at this point. And who knows how they set the building then, or what requirements are set for how the building should be set up to promote social distancing and things of the sort. But yeah, I don't have any idea why they could continue selling through the 29th. Maybe that's when the kind of edict went into place. I don't know. I haven't asked anybody there, but I'm sure you guys saw that Chris Charlton had to tweet that Wrestle Kingdom was not canceled.
Yeah,
indeed,
I saw that.
because
yeah.
If you Googled Wrestle Kingdom 15, I think sometime yesterday, it just came up canceled, which is obviously not the truth.
That's weird.
Luckily.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, make no mistakes about it, it is going to be different, but this Wrestle Kingdom is going to be different anyways. We're going to have all the same clap crowd implementation, in place. So it's not like we're going to have a raucous, 40, 50K,
right.
like the last couple of years. So, either way, it is going to be a challenge in a different atmosphere. But like you mentioned, Chris, we don't know what the setup's going to be or how they're going to space it out, or, they might tarp some of it off. I don't know.
Right. I mean, and it's still Wrestle Kingdom. It's still the Tokyo Dome. It won't be the smallest crowd ever in a Tokyo Dome for a match because Minoru Suzuki has, competed in an empty Tokyo Dome. So at least they got that going for them. Keep them off the bottom of that list.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to definitely be an interesting setup there. So, yeah, that's going to be a little bit different atmosphere this year for Wrestle Kingdom. But like you guys said, it's Wrestle Kingdom. It's still the biggest event, still the biggest stage. And I'm sure a lot of these guys are going to be coming out here and giving it their all for this big moment here.
And after that, we had a question from Sam. But I think we should actually go to Dan's question before we get to Sam's, because Sam's going to lead right into to what we're doing.
Yeah, so friend of the show, Dan Coffin asked, why is there no 6-man never openweight title match on either night?
Because fuck them belts.
Hey, those belts have been brought back to prominence by one Yoshihashi, but
yes, that's true.
To be honest, maybe they are doing their best to keep the amount of people on these cards small. And you can see that with a lot of singles matches. There's no big 6-8 man tags that are previewing like the following night or the previous night, like we saw last year on the Double Dome.
Yeah.
So I think, that could have something to do with it. That would be my best guess, is that, to be perfectly honest, they're not concerned with getting more people on the card. They're actually concerned with keeping fewer people safe, or keeping more people safe and keeping fewer people kind of in the locker room and having to go through what my understanding is a pretty strict, COVID testing regimen.
That is true, but they are doing the 22-man Rambo,
Right.
But who knows? That's going to be like staggered entry. So I'm doubting you're going to see a lot of people in the ring at the same time. You'll probably see a lot of quick eliminations in that thing. But my thinking here, it's double edged. It's like, okay, would it be great to highlight the titles and have them on the show, give them a big spot on the biggest show of the year? Sure, but it's usually in a match that nobody cares about, and since they're not doing the match. I mean, not to say people aren't entertained by it. They are entertained by it, but everyone kind of knows what the deal is. The Gauntlet is a throwaway match, and that's usually what this would have been. And instead, we're getting the Rambo, which I prefer. And I think we'll probably see the 6-mans highlighted, maybe even in the main event of the New Year's Dash, most likely. So, I don't think it's a bad call at all, because usually you get some meaningless title change in the Dome every year, as funny as that sounds, but it usually doesn't matter. Whoever wins that belt, it kind of just resets, and now Yoshihashi's reign can continue.
Yeah.
Well, and they clearly had to get the KOPW involved. So, there's only so much room for so many titles.
You're jumping ahead.
Yeah, KOPW has to be highlighted. And also, yeah, kind of like what you were saying, Chris, I think we've seen since they come back from the pandemic, they had this 6-match format for the cards. So I think, they had their 6, they want to do 6 matches both night. And again, they had to get the big highlight matches in and then kind of squeeze in whatever else they could. So,
yeah, you're saying 6-man or a 6-match format, but they didn't do that on the first night of the World Tag League / Super Juniors.
Right. Well, that was the exception. That was the first show that we had in a long time that had, 10 matches on the card?
Yeah, let's cut that back down to 6.
I'm sure you guys watched those shows. They were long. They got a little long.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But Sir Sam has asked us, so I know where I can get an edge in our wrestling headlines prediction column. What are your guys' picks? And guess what, Sam? That's what this episode is all about. We're going to be giving you our picks, our analysis. So let's jump right into it. Wrestle Kingdom 15, Night 1.
Yeah, so Night 1 is going to open up with the return of the New Japan. I have Rambo because there was a article that came out on New Japan World calling it the Rambo, mentioning like the Japanese translation for the word Rambo, meaning like I think it was like wild fury, something like wild and crazy, something like that. So, but I've seen other places on the site where it's called Rambo.
Yeah, fuck that. I'm calling it the Rambo with an M, like Rambo, because that's what I've known it as for the last 6 years or so, and I'm not changing now for anybody. I don't care.
Chris,
the official NJPW English website does say New Japan Rambo.
All right, so
you're saying the same thing as me, Rambo. Rambo,
right?
M.
Sylvester Stallone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go with Rambo. Forget the Japanese translation.
You know what I think it was? This was always my understanding, was that it was a bad pronunciation or a bad translation. And I think they're trying to fix it. Like, no. We weren't saying Rambo. We were saying Ranbo. Y'all messed up. And here's what I think it's a retcon, bro. That's what I think.
Could be. But it's back. It's been gone the last couple of years, and so they're bringing it back here to open up the show. But unlike previous years, it's going to come down to the final four instead of the final one person. And then the final four people would then advance to night 2 for the Fatal 4-Way to determine the first provisional 2021 King of Pro Wrestling.
It's basically Royal Rumble 1997.
So we've got the Rambo here, and a question here from user PSA91 says, are you happy to see the return of the Rumble on night 1 of Tokyo Dome, even though it's wrapped up with some nonsense KOPW stipulation?
Yes.
I second that. Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm happy to see it back. And he says, speaking of KOPW, how upset are you to see that it will continue in 2021? Is there any way that can redeem the KOPW concept in 2021?
I don't know. Maybe here's my thing, and maybe Chris, you can enlighten us, because you run in some pretty lofty circles. Okay, you got friends high up there. We had he's shaking his head. We had heard that they were doing away with this thing because the fans over there were outraged and not happy about it. And then turns out they're doubling down on this shit. So what's the deal?
I am not the booker. I want to be very clear. I do not book New Japan. But listen, I think we know where it's slotted now. I think New Japan knows where it's slotted.
Yeah.
And I think there's a place for it. I don't think that it's irrelevant, but I also don't think it is what they thought it was going to be at the beginning. So, they had Okada announce this thing.
Right.
So that's a lot bigger than having Toru Yano carry it around. So, and Yano was the perfect first champion, I guess, when it comes down to it. So can it be saved? I think it is what it is. And I think it's something that it gives a lot of guys something to do, and in a better way than like chasing someone around an arena for a 24/7 championship or wrestling a blow up doll. At least they're getting in the ring. So, and this is kind of New Japan's take on those types of championships. If it's up to me, if I want this thing to actually get interesting, I'm putting it on Minoru Suzuki. Because he's a guy who's done a lot of different types of matches, and I think could do something fun with it.
When we were doing our news story of the year, I thought that the announcement of KOPW needed to be on the list, and Jeremy did not want it on there initially. And I was like, Okada announced it. It has to be a news story. It doesn't matter how it turned out. Initially, it was a big deal.
Right.
But,
you can't just bury things you don't like.
Yes, we can. Yeah, I don't know. You say some stuff that sounds pretty good, but ultimately, my biggest problem with it is the whole idea was that it was going to be some sort of deal where it was based on stipulations, and the fans were going to vote each and every time. And then they've sometimes they voted, sometimes they haven't. Sometimes they're voting, but the stipulations are kind of the same thing. It'd be like, do you want a hardcore match or a street fight? It's the same shit.
Yeah, and then with the Fale and Yano, it's like, do you want a bi-slam match, or do you want a bi-slam match and a last corner pad standing match?
That's what I mean. Like, it's kind of nonsensical. But the only thing I could say that maybe could quote unquote redeem it is they only had it around for a little bit last year. Maybe if they actually book some stories around it. I'm not saying it needs to be a highlight. Like you mentioned, Chris, it's an opening act sort of title. If that's what it's going to be relegated to, I am totally fine with that. If it's just opening show fodder. But one thing I think they should do, I think they should start having some actual stipulations that are actual stipulations, not just variants of regular rules matches. I'm not saying always, but maybe at Dominion, you do a cage match or a bull rope match or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that one thing that could help too is if it was more like the Proteges title in in Rev Pro, where like the champion picks like one match stipulation while they're the champion. So let's say Yano's the champion, so his one and only stipulation is going to be last corner pass standing match. So every KOPW match while Yano's the champion is that. And then let's say Suzuki beats him, and Suzuki wants every match to be, a bull rope death match. And then going forward, every KOPW match is a bull rope death match.
What was the death match he was doing when he was the IC champ? He did 2 of them. Was it bull rope death match twice? I think he did one with Yano and one with Elgin, and they both sucked. I don't remember.
Yes, that's familiar.
Or maybe it was strap match. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think one was with Yano for sure.
Well, anyways,
I think it was just strap matches.
Yeah.
We got any predictions? I got my 4 guys ready to go.
Chris, you got your 4?
I don't, but maybe by the end of it, I will. But what I want to say before I forget is that like I actually think that this is the perfect stakes for the Rambo. Like I think that this so like they go from the Rambo to just a 4-way match the next night, which I think this is actually like a really good usage of the match, like the Rambo, instead of having it be for nothing. Right. So I'm kind of into that. And that's the level of guys that I think are fighting for KOPW. So this is actually a huge step forward. Now, why don't you guys go through your 4 and I'll steal 2 from each of you, and then I'll sound really smart when I'm right.
Well, I think you're gonna have to steal at least 3 from me because I think 3 of my picks are deadlock center. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying there pretty much. I think number 1, you got to go with Ishii and you got to go with Suzuki because they're 2 of the biggest names that just have nothing going on, and they make a lot of sense to be included. I could see them snubbing Ishii, but I don't see a lot of names in the personnel of his stature that deserve to be in something like this, so I think they throw him a little bone. My 3rd pick, and these are the 3 that I think are locks, Yano has to be in this because he's already the former champion emeritus, however you want to do it. And I don't think that you can do this gimmick without him, and I think he's also one of the bigger names. And then at the end of it, you got a smorgasbord of, competitors, of guys you want to pick. I'm going to pick Fale because, I don't know, he just makes sense to me. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so I have a lot of similar names here. I think Ishii, Suzuki, and Yano are also a lock. This makes sense with those 3 guys. Our 3 guys are typically would have either maybe a tag title match or be in a never title match or a never 6-man match. So those are pretty big names that aren't really doing much. So I feel you can get those guys in there. And then, the 4th spot is kind of a toss-up. Farley makes a ton of sense. I think Goto is another guy that makes sense because he's not doing much, even though then you would have 3 Chaos guys in there against Suzuki.
Maybe Hinare.
Hinare it's another guy that could fit in there.
Despy. Show.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys. Yeah, Show, we've seen Show compete in the lead up in the KOPW against Sonata. There's a lot of guys you can throw out there.
Well, remember Despy was in the other 4-way.
Yeah, so Despy was in there also. Yeah, so there's a lot of guys. I mean, Despy's going to be in a tag title match on night 2.
You're right. So he's out. I wasn't even. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So, but I'm also going to go with Fale. I think with him feuding with Yano for the KOPW 2020 at the end there,
right.
It makes a ton of sense there. You can even have Fale win the match and kind of get revenge over Yano and start the year off.
Nagata and Makabe kind of make sense too because it doesn't really matter.
Right. Makabe just coming back from making his movie, that works. Nagata coming off a great 2020, that works as well.
Liger.
Surprise entrance, big pop. I think the only name that you guys haven't mentioned that I would throw into the mix is Taguchi.
Oh yeah.
Well, he's facing the tag title match tonight too.
Yeah,
it's him and Wato.
Yeah, but this seems right up his alley. I mean, it really does. Especially after Best of the Super Juniors, he wasn't big match to Gooch very, very frequently there. So that's the only name that you guys threw. It's kind of a toss up. I'm hopeful that it moves away from Yano and into something a little bit different.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know
if they put the title on Suzuki, like you mentioned, he could do some really cool stuff with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a lot of fun.
Yoshihashi's someone we didn't throw out there, and he's not doing shit.
Hey,
he's the never 6-man champion. He all 3 belts. They're all his.
Let's just do Doki. Why not?
I would like that.
I bet you they go with Bushi and. But I think we've spent a lot of time. I think we all love the Rambo, but let's get to the actual action here.
Before we go, we had a question here from Mazda saying, could we expect any surprise entrance in the New Japan Rambo? And who is your out of left field pick to be that surprise entrant?
I don't think we're going to, because my biggest, unless they've been quarantining, for 2 weeks and been tested and all that sort of shit, I find it hard to believe they're going to include some of the surprise fun people from the past like they normally do. But if they were going to do somebody from outside, I don't know. I'll just throw someone, I don't know, great Sasuke. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see anyone that hasn't wrestled for New Japan, within the last calendar year.
So no Muto?
I don't think we're going to see Muto. Isn't he busy?
Yeah, he's got a GHC title to win.
Yeah. Like Chris mentioned earlier, like they've been pretty strict with their COVID protocol and who's going to be at the show and kind of trying to limit the amount of people there. So I would be highly surprised if they got some kind of surprise entrance. You know what? What about Milano Collection AT?
No, he can't wrestle.
He gets off the commentary booth and gets dumped over pretty quickly or something like that.
Jerry Lawler's.
Yeah.
The one person from outside that I was like, maybe they made it there in time and maybe they could be quarantining and maybe they could be an option is like Hikuleo. Maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see. Doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but it doesn't really matter.
I think it's going to be
it'll be
your
fun.
typical group.
Yeah.
Guys that you'd see in the Rambo and coming down to the Final Four is interesting too, because it's unorthodox, right? Usually you get down to the Final Four and you're like, all right, these are the 4 guys. They each take a corner. You swell the crowd a little bit. I think that it'll be a little alarming when all of a sudden there's like you realize there's only 5 guys left and someone's got to go over.
Yeah. I think what they'll probably do is they'll probably have like a final 6 or 7 and then have like 3 of them get rolled out or whatever, or and then have those last 4. Or what it'll probably be? They'll probably have 4 guys in the ring. They'll probably have 4 guys in the ring, and you think that those are the 4, and then Yano rolls from underneath and drops one of them out.
Yeah, I could easily see that happen.
Or like he hits him with the fucking turnbuckle pad, and they fly out of the ring, and that's the way it ends.
Sure.
Didn't Kakihara win this last time?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, and I was mad confident. I was like, Bushi's for sure winning this.
But now let's move on to the first, big opening matchup here. We have the Super J Cup 2020 winner, the Headbanger, El Phantasmo, taking on the Best of the Super Junior 27 winner, Hiromu Takahashi. And the winner here will face the current IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, the Bone Soldier Taiji Ishimori, on night 2.
My apologies, Jeremy. I questioned your credibility when I said that Phantasmo called out Hiromu Takahashi by name at the Super J Cup. And you said that I was incorrect, and I thought that you were wrong, but I went back and listened to it, and you were absolutely right. I should have never doubted you.
Little editing magic there that they did there.
Yeah.
So what are we thinking, guys, here? ELP versus Romeo, I believe this is the first time matchup.
This is the first time these two have ever wrestled.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. ELP, he's really been, I mean, like, Super J Cup aside, obviously he won all those matches, but he's 12-2 in 2020 overall. That includes tag matches. So he's a strong competitor. He obviously didn't get a ton of ring time, but he's credible. He's credible. So I think that's what makes this really interesting. And then also it being first time, big time stakes for Hiromu to try to get back to the Dome, trying to go through 2 Bullet Club juniors that are both honestly have been really strong this year or even just the past 2 years. So I think this as kind of the singles opener or the big match opener right behind the Rambo, like this is gonna be a good match.
I think this match has the potential to be a really, really good match, especially stylistically. I think anyone that's a listener is probably aware. I'm not the biggest El Phantasmo fan, but I'm quite aware of his like physical, prowess, and you match him up with a high flyer, crazy guy like Hiromu Takahashi. Plus, Hiromu's so beloved, and ELP is so good at getting heat. And there's also the intrigue that they've never wrestled before. ELP's never. I think ELP was in the Dome last year, but it was like in a really quick little junior tag match. So
against Roppongi 3K.
Yeah, This is like his coming out party for a lot of people, and I think he's going to be looking to make a name for himself. I think this match has a lot of potential and a lot of the recipes that, or a lot of the ingredients in a recipe that you'd look for a great, great match. I'm actually more intrigued by this match than either of the second night matches with Taiji Ishimori, just because these are 2 guys that I could see slotted in like a Super Junior final, and we've never gotten it before. So it's kind of the unknown. But ultimately for me, and I'll throw out my prediction right now, El Phantasmo winning doesn't make a lot of sense for me unless they're doing something where they're going to like split off Taiji Ishimori, or I think either way, I think whoever wins, Ishimori's jobbing too, because they got to get the belt off of him. The way they booked the Best of the Super Juniors, and he was like on an underling the entire tour, shows you where they see him at this current time in the pecking order. So either way, he's losing to one of these guys, and I don't know that there's enough legs to stand on for a Phantasmo Ishimori feud or match right now. They could do that; it might be interesting, but I think the more conventional, typical story that makes sense, especially with how big a star he is, I think Hiromu wins here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this match. I think it's going to be a great matchup, especially being like the first like opener of the main card. I think these guys are going to go out here and try to kill it. And yeah, with Hiromu, the way he wrestles, I think he's going to get a great match. Whether you like ELP or not, I think it's going to end up being a great matchup here. Like you mentioned, Chris, yeah, the company definitely is very high on El Phantasmo, back-to-back Super J Cup winner. And it's projected pretty strong for the most part, especially last year when he kind of made his debut and ran through his run through Super Juniors and just kind of attacked stuff Ishimori. But like Josh is saying, from a booking and story standpoint, I think Hiromu makes the most sense to win here. Plus, Taiji beat Hiromu at Jingu, so this could be Hiromu's revenge here to get the title back from Taiji Ishimori. And I just don't think a ELP Taiji Bullet Club versus Bullet Club match makes the most sense right now.
Who do you guys think is, maybe you know this, but who do you think is older, Hiromu or El Phantasmo?
I think El Phantasmo is older, right?
Yeah, Phantasmo.
He is, yeah. He's 34. So, that's not to say he's old by any means, but with the junior style, he may not have a million years left at the top level. So somehow, some way, I feel like this year he's going to get to that top level. He's certainly worked his tail off to get there. The 2 Super J Cup victories. He's got to do it in Japan, and that's what we haven't seen completely. He had a really good Best of the Super Juniors last year, but couldn't quite take it to that next level. But I do think we're going to see Phantasmo, assuming he does some work in Japan this year. Like, obviously that's still up in the air of what that's going to look like. But if he's involved in Best of Super Juniors, or even just getting himself some IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship matches, I think that we're going to see him elevate. Is now the right time for him? Has he heated himself up enough to, just get a championship match against his faction mate in Taiji Ishimori? No, probably not. I don't think so. I think Hiromu's the guy. I think Hiromu's someone, especially because jumping ahead to the next night, this is the semi-main.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
So I think that's Hiromu's spot.
Yeah.
And I do think, though, that Josh and I, we talked about this. I do think Phantasmo could come into play in the second night, where you could have Phantasmo, try to help Ishimori win, and that backfires. Hiromu wins, and that causes a tension between ELP and Taiji. And there's a lot of people who think that ELP is Empire bound and could be a potential member of the Empire.
You know what? I hadn't heard that from anybody, but I was like, I thought that was going to be my little hot take. I was like, everyone thinks it's Eagles, but it's really might be ELP. But I didn't know other people, are on the same wavelength.
Yeah, I've seen a few other people kind of throw that theory out there. And so you could have this be the catalyst that splits Phantasmo off from Bullet Club when he accidentally costs Taiji the title.
That's something that could definitely, there's a lot of ways they could do that. The one thing I think that, and we'll move on, but the one thing I think ELP has going for him in favor of maybe headlining the second night is if they were like, we're going to make him a star. We're going with the guy. So he is going to get the semi-main event spot. And it's a match that they've never done before, him and Taiji Ishimori. Because I don't think they were in the same block last year during Super Juniors, were they?
I don't think so.
No, they definitely weren't, because Ishimori was in the A block and he was in the B block with Osprey.
Right.
So that's the one, and I still think it's Hiromu, but the one thing that he might have going for them is they like to do matches that they've never done before, at Wrestle Kingdom. And we've seen Hiromu and Ishimori multiple times in the recent past. I mean, this would be their third match within, a quote unquote calendar year. So, that is fitting because it ends the trilogy, but I could maybe see them going with ELP, but I'm hedging my bets and going with Hiromu.
Yeah. I just have a tough time seeing ELP, burn through Super J-Cup the way he did. And then I think the level of talent that was in Best of Super Juniors was so significantly higher. No knock at anyone who was in J-Cup, but a single elimination tournament versus a block, you put it all together, and Hiromu's the guy who's ready for this.
Definitely.
You're saying Hiromu's better than ELP? That's crazy.
I'm saying he's more seasoned currently. ELP is coming off a long layoff and clearly a long trip to Japan.
Let's talk about these IWGP heavyweight tag team titles. Dangerous Tekkers against the Gorillas of Destiny.
Yeah, so we have the current IWGP Tag Champs, Dangerous Tekkers, GOD. They won the World Tag League for the first time, so they broke the World Tag League curse, and now they're going to be looking to break the Tokyo Dome curse. We've seen in the last several years that the tag team titles are titles that seem to switch hand every year. GOD lost it last year to Finjuice. And they've gone to the Dome, I believe, 3 or 4 times as the tag champions and have not left the title. So this will be an opportunity for them to walk in as the challengers and to leave the Dome with the championships. So pretty big matchup here for GOD. These are 2 of the top teams that we've seen. So Dangerous Tekkers, they've been the top team during the pandemic era, have held it down with their feud with Golden Ace. And GOD has been, a centerpiece of the tag division for years and years now. And so you kind of have like the new Ace tag team against like the old Ace tag team, so to speak.
Not to mention the work they've been doing on Strong. They've been running roughshod over the tag team division in America. They've been beating up, Justin Gabriel, Fred Rosser, everybody.
God has lost 3 straight IWGP tag team title matches in the Tokyo Dome. So 17, 19, and 20. So that's the other monkey on their back, it seems.
Yeah, let's make it 4, right? Chris, what are your thoughts on this match?
I have enjoyed Dangerous Tekkers, so much. I think that both those guys could splinter off and go back to singles competition in their various divisions, but I think that I don't think they're done kind of putting over the tag team or the tag division. So, and I think Girls of Destiny they're good. I think Tama Tonga looks great with his haircut and shave. Like it's all good, but I think that there's a good chance that they're going to get wrapped up in whatever's happening in Bullet Club, because clearly something's still happening. And I think that the tag situation, I think that, Zach and Taichi have just been so good that I think maybe this is the year that somebody retains the tag team title at Wrestle Kingdom.
Is that your official pick?
Yeah.
You're going Dangerous T?
Yeah.
Wow.
God can't get both monkeys off their back in like the span of a couple months.
Chris living dangerously. I am going with God. I think my big theory is on the big shows they like to switch titles. It just makes all the sense in the world to go with God. And I can totally from a personal standpoint, I like Dangerous Tekkers way more than I like God, but there's just so many reasons that you could go with God over Dangerous T. Like you mentioned, Chris, they could easily splinter off and go singles. And I think that they're established enough as a tag team that you can throw them back together whenever called upon, and they got the credibility that they can just do that again. I don't think you can do that with, say, Golden Ace necessarily, but Dangerous T, they're in the same faction. It's like kind of an established thing. So there's that. And I do think God needs to kind of get both monkeys off their back. The main reason being that they're kind of considered in kayfabe one of the greatest tag teams ever in the history of New Japan. But this is like the one other thing that they've never accomplished. They kind of need to get a big win in the Dome after winning the World Tag League, So I just think that it makes sense. The other big thing is obviously there's a lot of restrictions right now. I don't know what's happening, but I think people are still maybe hoping for a potential Guns and Gallows thing down the road. And if they come back and they're involved in this split, it's just so natural that you would have those two teams, them and God, as the two teams on the opposite ends. If they are going to eventually do a civil war, which I think they're angling for, I think you need the title to be involved in that program. And I think it makes all the sense in the world to just put the belts on God.
Yeah, so I'm also going with Guerrillas of Destiny here. My heart says Dangerous Tekkers, and my head is telling me God. Just for the fact of the state of the tag team division. Like, if Dangerous Tekkers beats God, then who do they face? Like, there's not a ton of tag teams there that are ready and willing to go, especially now Juice is out with the orbital bone injury, so you can't pull Finn Juice up. There's not many teams to pick, so I feel like for the first quarter of this year, the main tag feud is probably going to be Dangerous Tekkers versus God. So you have God get the win here, beat Tekkers, and then these two teams can kind of go back and forth with the belts in the first quarter of the year. New beginning tour, you have these guys feud, that new show that they're going to be doing, and we'll talk about Joe Hall. Maybe Dangerous Tekkers gets the belts back there in February, and then you kind of extend this program. It's not just a one and done kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair to believe that that's what's going to happen, but you're wrong. It's okay.
Trust me, I would love to see a black Zack Driver or Zack Mephisto in here, Milan Collection AT, dangerous, with that backdrop driver on either Tama or Tanga.
Why it gotta be a black Zack Driver?
Yeah. I think they've been so good. They've been good in ring. They've been great promo. So I don't want to see them fade out yet. So, and I think God is, I don't know that they're at that level anymore. I think the tag division may need to come up to where the tag division it seems to be headed, because the level of competition seems to be getting higher based on what we saw in World Tag League, which I thought was a great tournament.
I don't think they were ever at that level, to be honest with you. But if you want my honest opinion, I think that as good as the World Tag League was, ultimately they showed us that they're really only going with the 2 tag teams, which is Finn Juice and God. We could have saved ourselves an entire, 4-week tournament. I could have told you right off the bat, who are the 2 teams in that list that are actual recognized tag teams? Finn Juice and God. All right, done deal. Here we go. Like, move on. I think they got a lot of talent, but I don't see them committing to this tag, department or division in any real tangible way. So I think it's gonna be business as usual. I think it's gonna be God having God matches against ABC team all year, and that's pretty much it. Like, I don't see them. I mean, I don't know what they do next with Dangerous Tekkers if they do win. I guess New Year's Dash could answer that for us for sure. But I think it makes sense to just put it on God and let Zach and Taichi go off and, fuck shit up in the singles like they normally do. It's going to be great.
We also got to think about Master Hito Jado. I'm sure will be at ringside with the kendo stick, and that'll be an extra factor that Dangerous Tekkers will have to fight off.
Well, I mean, they might have your girl at ringside. Who knows? What's her favorite?
Miho Abe.
They might have Miho. You don't know.
Miho must be so bored.
But I think that's going to do it. Let's move on to the 3rd match of the night.
Yep. So this is one I am very excited for. The IWGP US Heavyweight Title #1 contender briefcase match. My man, the leader of the Bread Club, the man with the strongest arm, Satoshi Kojima, will be challenging Kenta for the briefcase. I am fired up for this one.
I love this. I was very excited when this happened, and I'm very excited for it. First of all, I think it's going to be a good match. Like, Kojima can go. We all know that. He's motivated to do his best, and Kenta he needs a real opponent here. And Kojima represents that. I mean, Kojima had the 2nd best fall differential in New Japan in 2020. Positive 26 fall differential. So that means like he had 26 more winning falls than he lost his own falls. So that's really good. Only Sonata is better than that. Sonata's at 30. So, I mean, Kojima very quietly, he won all his matches for his teams. Like, he's the guy that's in the ring at the end with the strongest arm, hitting those lariats, no matter where they are on the card. They're high or low on the card, middle of the card, etc. He's the guy that was ending these matches. So he's still got it. Now, Kojima in singles, that may be a little different. Kenta's obviously got the edge there, where he's spent a lot more time in the ring as a singles competitor this year, especially through his time with New Japan Strong. But, I think this is the most credible opponent Kenta's had for the briefcase so far.
What?
You going to talk about Jeff Cobb?
No, Tanahashi challenged for that title.
Well, let's talk about Tanahashi's singles performance in 2020, shall we? We'll get there when we talk about Great Okan.
Let's talk about Kojima's singles performance in 2020, because you mentioned it, Chris, but I've stepped up my stat game since you're going to be on the show here. This man is 3-4 in televised singles matches in 2020. Guess who all 3 of those wins came against?
Tell me.
Lions. All four losses came against established talent, which tells me that it doesn't matter if this man is lariating every single person in the World Tag League. He can't get it done in singles action anymore. How's this man deserving of a title shot? I don't understand.
Well,
but one of his losses was because he lariated El Desperado.
That is true. He should be 4-3,
which is kind of a win in its own right. And El Desperado has clearly elevated himself.
And you see, Kojima was smart enough to follow the New Japan the rule. If you want a title match, you just call a champion out.
That's true.
He took advantage of Juice Robinson out with a broken orbital bone, got hurt on the second Road Tokyo Dome show. So obviously he was out of night 3. He's out of the Tokyo Dome,
unfortunately.
And then my man Satoshi Kojima saw the opportunity, decided to step up and to challenge Kenta after their tag match that they had on the last Road Tokyo Dome show. Laid out Kenta with the Koji Cutter, holding the briefcase high over his head. I'm sorry about this, gentleman.
And here's the thing, all these fans that were raving about, AEW, they're going to have stats, they're going to have rankings. Nah, fuck all that. You come out, you hold up a briefcase, you get a title shot. That's it. That's all you got to do. It's New Japan, baby.
I was informed recently there's no such thing as earning a title shot. So...
I'm sorry. A title opportunity. Sorry.
Yeah, whatever we're calling it. There's the factor here that will come into play that I think historically will, matters is Kojima has a lot more experience in the Tokyo Dome. This will be his 34th match in the Tokyo Dome.
Ooh.
His 9th singles match. So, and that goes all the way back to 1994. This will be Kenta's 5th match in the Tokyo Dome, and I believe it's his 3rd singles. So there's something there. Kojima doesn't have a ton of history with huge, big success, but he is 17-13 in the Tokyo Dome overall. So.
Yeah, and the thing I love about this too is a lot of fans have been wanting to see Kojima get that one last G1, that one kind of last big hurrah, and we haven't gotten that. He wasn't even in the World Tag League this year, and so I think this is kind of a great kind of last hurrah moment for him, last kind of big stage, the gunslinger going out on its last kind of big night here.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of, Wrestle Kingdom's gone by where you have guys like Makabe, Nagata, Suzuki, in big slots, and that's kind of gone by the wayside. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. My whole thinking, and don't get me wrong, I'm kind of just playing a character when I say I don't like this. Of course I like it. I mean, it's Kenta against Kojima, and I think one thing is they've never wrestled before in a singles match ever, so that's a big deal. And keep in mind, when Kenta was at the top of his game in Noah, Kojima maybe wasn't at the top, but he was a big star, a big legend, All Japan, New Japan. And I think this is one of those generational things where people kind of wondered back then what would happen if, and I think modern day viewers don't really understand that aspect of Kojima's legacy. He was one of the biggest stars in Puroresu. So it is something it didn't happen back then, but it's going to happen now. And people have been waiting for it, and I think a lot of people can really buy into it. So I am excited from a stylistic standpoint, historic. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. My only thing about it was this. I kind of was thinking, maybe you should throw Suzuki in here, or Ishii, or even Hanare. Those were the kind of guys I was thinking maybe they would give the rub to, but clearly they're giving the opportunity to Kojima, and I think it's something to be excited for. So
predictions, gentlemen?
Oh, I mean, Kenta's retaining.
Ah, man. Again, and
that seems likely.
Wait, why are you sighing? This isn't a foregone conclusion. Everyone knows what's happening.
Again, my heart is saying Kojima, or my head is obviously saying Kenta. And so this battle between love and knowledge here. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Kenta, unfortunately.
Bro, you're working
putting Kojima to sleep here.
You're working for the benefit of the audience. This is we're supposed to have journalistic integrity here. Putting on a dog and pony show. I'm embarrassed.
We also had a question here from
what would you do if Kojima really won, though?
Dude, if Kojima won, dude, I am freaking marking out. I am going to be running around the dojo like you did when Okada revealed that he wasn't wearing pants anymore.
Off the pants?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do the same thing, too.
Oh, man. We have a question here from Muzza. He said, with Bread Club's glorious leader, Satoshi Kojima, challenging for the U.S. title contendership, what is your favorite type of bread?
You know what? I didn't think I had an answer, but I do have an answer. I love the cheddar bread from Red Lobster. Oh my god!
Oh yeah, the cheddar biscuits.
I could fuck up a whole basket of cheddar biscuits.
Chris, what about you?
I've never thought about my favorite kind of bread.
Me either, but that's what my heart's telling me.
I love bread.
Yeah.
Like I'm a card carrying member of the bread club.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as I got that Kojima retweet way back in the day, a year ago or so, but like that's my boy, and I love bread and I love carbs, but I've never thought about my favorite, probably because it's all my favorite, and I live like down the street from the Pepperidge Farm factory, so no, like legit, like it's like I could walk there, but I always know it's a good day when I can smell the cinnamon raisin scent coming my way, so maybe that's my favorite, just with the scent.
Nice.
My other favorite, a New York style bagel. Oh, a real one where it's crispy on the outside but doughy on the inside. Oh my, with some butter. Oh my God,
man! Living here in Florida, I love me a good Cuban bread.
Oh yes.
Yeah, you get a Cuban press sandwich from somewhere. Oh,
bro,
my.
from Ybor.
Yes, dude. Oh man, just a great Cuban breakfast sandwich.
Oh my
There's
God.
so much you can do for Cuban, but so much you can do with all kinds of bread. Yeah, I love bread in general.
Pop-Tarts.
That bread, that's just bad carbs and sugar.
Bread, right?
Oh man. But moving on to the next matchup here. Got a big singles match. We have the Ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi, taking on the Empire's Great O-Khan. This is a match that
controversial.
Yeah, the fan base is kind of divided on. You have a lot of fans thinking that Tanahashi shouldn't be facing somebody like O-Khan, that this is kind of booking malpractice. You have fans that are all in on this and absolutely love it and think it's going to be great. Where do you fall in this little debate here, Chris?
Oh, I know where Chris falls.
Tell me where I fall then.
Because you're a smart man. You're in the O-Khan camp with us.
Yeah, I'm pro O-Khan.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be great. What are we doing? Like, what's the problem? The man showed up and, like, dominated Okada. He came out, he ruined Okada's night, and he's been great since. He's huge and strong and young and energetic, and he's wild. He's wild, and he's got, when it comes down to it, Empire they're gonna be a factor.
Yes.
That's a strong trio right now, and I'm sure to grow, probably with other strong members of the group. So O-Khan is good, and he's gonna be good, and he's gonna be strong. Does that set him up to beat the Ace in the Tokyo Dome? Maybe. I don't know. We'll get to predictions, right? But him being in this match, I mean, his first two singles matches now in New Japan are against Okada and Tanahashi. So that says something, and I think he's definitely earned the Tanahashi match, and the Okada match he took, and that's just as good as we were just talking about with challenging for championships. Go in and take a match with one of the big dogs. Even if you lose, at least you're in the ring.
It's funny because, a lot of people tend to have this inclination to assume that they know what is going on behind closed doors within any wrestling company, when in fact we don't know. You literally don't know, But there seems to be this narrative of a certain fan base that, like, Tanahashi is just this this prisoner who's just beholden to the booker, this big bad Gato who's just telling him what to do and just fucking ruining his career and just burying him. And, Dave Meltzer has called it booking malpractice, so people are latching onto that. Like, and I get it. Like, Tanahashi is still really, really good. In fact, Tanahashi is my favorite New Japan wrestler, so trust me, I get it. But also, I get that, like, he's one of the most giving wrestlers there ever was. Remember how he put over Zach in the New Japan Cup, and any number of guys that he's tapped out to or done jobs for over the past 2, 3, 4 years. I can tell you this: Hiroshi Tanahashi has enough cachet, pull, and power in the company. If he didn't want to be working the Tokyo Dome with Oka, he wouldn't be working with Oka. The reason he's working with the Great O-Khan is because he sees something in him, just like anyone who's constantly consistently watching this product see something in him. I think literally the only people who don't see it are the people who are jumping in and parachuting in and cherry picking shows and also getting their opinions from one or two opinionated voices, and that's about it. Ultimately, I'm not going to bet against Tanahashi in the Dome. I'm not. And I understand that there's some people who might say like, oh, well, there was the White situation a few years ago where that match didn't live up to its expectations. Well, it's like, was it a 5-star classic? No. Did it establish Jay White as a force to be reckoned with in the company? And, let's see where he's at. He's headlining the Tokyo Dome a couple years later. Yeah, it was a success. And I'm telling you right now, this match, is it going to be a 5-star classic? No. Because that's not Oka's role, and that's not Tanahashi's role anymore. Could Tanahashi do that? Yes, he absolutely could. If you put Tanahashi, we saw what he did with Omega a couple years ago. If you put him and Will Osprey in the main event of the Tokyo Dome, could he still have 5-star matches? Yes, but that's not his role. His role here is to make another star. You can't have it one way or the other, There's a lot of people who are like, well, New Japan's not like it was before. Okay, well, we can't just have Naito, Tanahashi, and Okada headlining everything forever. We need to make future stars. Then and there's been people who've complained about that. Then they go to make the stars, and people are like, well, this isn't like the New Japan that I used to like. No, it's not going to be because it's new. They're pushing new people. They're making new stars.
Right.
You have to have a little bit of patience and give a little leeway. I understand that 2020 wasn't the year everyone wanted it to be. I understand that there's some questionable booking decisions and some things about the company we all didn't like, and that's definitely worthy of criticism. But at the end of the day, every criticism that that was brought up about Okan when he initially came in, they fixed it almost day one. They fixed it within weeks, and the guy was fucking awesome in the World Tag League. There's a built-in historical aspect between the fact that he was the young boy for Tanahashi, and they're going to give him time. They're going to give him an opportunity to shine. I think this match is going to be awesome. I don't know this is one of the matches where I'm going with Okan because I want to be ahead. But I mean, he doesn't have to win. All he has to do is have a good showing against Tanahashi, which in the Dome isn't that hard. I think this is going to be awesome.
What do you think, Chris?
I'm here for it. Like, let's go. I don't know that it's come up much in the narrative, but Hiroshi Tanahashi I don't think he's won a match with the High Fly Flow since October 1st is the last thing that I've got in the notes I've sent along. So it's been a while since he's hit really his big move. And he's had plenty of matches since then. So, October 1st versus Yoshihashi, as far as I can tell, that's the last time he even attempted a High Fly Flow. So, and then, Okan, is he going to do it by himself? Is he going to,
right?
Is someone else going to show up? Is Jeff Cobb going to come to ringside with him? We know Tanahashi's going to be out there by himself. So, the results of the match may hang on whether or not Okan outsmarts Tanahashi in that way, in the way of being, conniving. Even if they don't get involved, they're there, right? And Tanahashi's a smart guy. He's always got his peripheral on. Maybe that's enough to distract him to get to the point where Okan can get the win here.
Is there a junior that could be implemented as a member of the Empire that would be like a big shock if they joined, in this spot? Like, I'm thinking, like, is Yo mobile enough to like be that guy if he really wanted to be, hypothetically?
I don't know.
That's what I'm wondering. They don't have a junior. I think that's the one thing everyone's wondering. They're like, where's their junior? What if the junior like is the surprise guy that helps Okan beat Tanahashi? Like, that would kind of make sense, but I could see Oka beating him square, but not square by cheating. He cheats and he bests Tanahashi in the Dome.
And we've seen the build up to this match. Okan has targeted the knees of Tanahashi. So again, that could be, take advantage of the lenient rules in a New Japan match. He can go to the side, does like the knee breaker on the guardrail, uses chairs on the knees, and so he can just literally break Tanahashi down and get Tanahashi to a point where he has to either submit or kind of pass out from the pain of some kind of leg submission hold. So they could always go that route if they want Okan to kind of come out dominant over Tanahashi. Like we said on the show, I'm a big fan of Okan. I like what the subtle changes they've done with the gimmick, dropping the puffy pants. I like the Mongolian scream that he does with the chops, and I just think he's just a really good, solid worker. I think he's going to be a star in this company, and obviously, like we've seen, first singles match with Okada. Now he's here at the Dome with Tanahashi. I think this is going to be very similar to the Jay White situation where they're using Tanahashi to get this guy over. And with that, I think it's also going to be similar in the fact that Tanahashi is going to win. I'm going to go with the ace beating Great Okan here.
I don't think that's a bad call at all. I think that would make a lot of sense because Tanahashi has had a lot of losses this year. So him getting a big win in the Dome against Okan in particular isn't a bad way to go. I'm just kind of being hipsterish about it and going with Okan, but to me, it doesn't really matter one way or the other because I think the story is about Okan's coming out party regardless of what the outcome is.
Right.
Tanahashi 12-8 in the Dome in singles matches all time, 5-8 in singles matches in 2020. Certainly he's due for a good run there. Obviously he's got a lot of history in the Dome, a lot of those 12-8 main events. I mean, he's in big spots in the Dome. Tanahashi delivers and shows up. Great Okan also not the top guy in Empire. So I don't know that he's ready for the big win. Right. So I think if he starts getting those big wins, like I think those are the seeds for future struggles with the leader, the organizer of the Empire, Will Osprey. And I don't think that's where we're headed right now. So if push comes to shove, I think Tanahashi's going to pull out a big win here.
That's a great, point to make there. It actually kind of leans into the question we had here from Kenny Omega Fan 18. They asked, if the Great Okan beats Hiroshi Tanahashi, what is next for both men? And I think you brought up a great point there, Chris, is like, if he were to win, that would be the building blocks of potentially, maybe a conflict within the group. Here's the only thing, though. What if Tanahashi has slowly been... He's still a big star, but brought down in terms of where the company sees him, and a win over him isn't seen as like beating a top 5 guy, but it's more like seen like on that intercontinental never level. Maybe it's not as problematic as it might seem at that point. That, that's one thing to kind of consider. Not to diminish his star power, speaking of Tanahashi. But I think this is a different take on the question. I'll let you guys have it, but I think Tanahashi could be a potential title challenger down the road within, especially if hypothetically Ibushi were to win the titles. They told a story between the two of them. So if he wins, there is a logical path for him down the road, maybe say Dantaku, Dominion, something like that. I don't know. But if he loses, I don't really know what happens next. So you guys might be convincing me to go Tanahashi here. I don't know.
What do you think, Chris? What do you think's next for Okan if he does beat the ace?
I mean, if Okan wins, I think he's got to get more singles matches under his belt, I think. And I think that's what he's got to try to accomplish on his way to the New Japan Cup, obviously, which assuming we keep a more traditional calendar this upcoming year, New Japan Cup will be the first big opportunity for a guy like Okan to show up in a way that's traditionally New Japan establishes their great new talent. So,
well, don't forget Castle. What's it called? Castle Attack?
Castle Attack.
Yeah, Castle
Attack.
Well,
I just meant tournament wise, where he would have to mow through a couple of guys in a short period of time.
Right.
At a really high level. That would be his first real big chance to do that. But I think he would need to get some more singles matches with some credible opponents under his belt. So not just beating up, the Yu Uemaras or Tsuji or, whoever. He needs to get some big time matches in, even with, maybe mow through the guys that typically live in the never category. Right. So, and I don't really know where Okan sees himself or where the company sees him right now. But I mean, putting him, he's got every opportunity to succeed right now, right? He's in the Tokyo Dome with Hiroshi Tanahashi in the semi-main on January 4th. Like,
all right, you guys sold me. I've officially changed my opinion. It's gonna be Tanahashi winning in the Dome. Everything you guys have said has like completely changed my mind.
But to answer the question for me, if Okan beats Tanahashi, like Chris was saying, I think there needs to be some kind of bigger opportunity set up next. I feel like either, the New Japan Cup run or some kind of title situation. I guess depending on who wins between Shingo and Cobb. If Shingo wins, you could do Okan versus Shingo for the Never title and do a feud there. But I definitely think if he's beating Tanahashi, there's got to be some kind of next kind of opportunity for him to go after. And for Tanahashi, if he loses, I mean, he's Tanahashi. He'll always be a big star, but maybe he just continues to work his way down the card, and he's featured in opening matches until they're ready to kind of heat him up again.
He might go to Never Division and fight Shingo or Cobb. That might be good.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there.
Wow, we have made some headway. We are now at the semi-main event of night one. Kazuchika Okada versus Will Osprey.
Yeah, big matchup here. Obviously with the turn on Okada that Will Osprey did during the G1 tournament, which led to the debut of the man we were talking about, Great Okan. Seen a lot of interviews from Osprey and Okada talking about, how personal this match is, and Okada mentioning he wants this match to be IWGP title level stakes and quality. So we should be in for a incredible matchup here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is, for me, the most anticipated match of the entire 2 nights of Wrestle Kingdom. Just because of the two talents that are here. Now, I'm not that engrossed with the story, personally. I think I could have been, because there is a great story here, and they've had some nice segments, but I think that having that, month-long World Tag League / Super Juniors kind of stole a lot of the attention off of this story, and they kind of had to try to heat it up, based off of 3 shows. I don't think that was quite enough to get it to, Bruno Larry levels, which is the story that they're trying to tell, essentially. But ultimately, I think that this is going to continue after this is all said and done. I don't think that we're anywhere near done with Okada and Will Osprey. This is going to be a prolonged thing, and I think this is the first story in a long line of chapters between these two guys. With that being the case, I think it's going to be the best match it's probably going to be a match of the year contender. Every single time Osprey and Okada have gotten in the ring, we've said that it very likely could be a match of the year contender. And guess what? It never has quite lived up to that level. It's gotten close on a few occasions, but there hasn't been enough to really sink your teeth into. And now we finally have that here, because, you've got a heel-face dynamic, you've got history, you've got stakes, and it's a big deal, plus a big venue. And, so I'm going with Osprey to win here in a classic, and I think he's going to cheat, and I think Okada is going to have some comeuppance in the future here.
What do you think, Chris?
Tough to pick a winner here. I wouldn't have picked Will in the G1 aside from Great Okan, entering and B Priestley for that matter, and the split off of Chaos, right? So I think Okada has had, like Tanahashi, right? Okada's had a weird 2020.
Yeah.
Right. So he's coming off of that, and I think both of those guys certainly know that there are guys coming up the ladder, and those Okada and Tanahashi are two of the guys that are at the top of the ladder, and they can be surpassed quickly and easily with especially with a whole new unit like the Empire, right? And Osprey is a guy who we've seen grow, and we've seen from both physically and theoretically as a wrestler. And now he's establishing himself as a heavyweight, and I think Osprey's eyes are on that top title, right? And this is a win that he'll need to be able to be that competitor, to put him in that conversation. Now, I don't know if this is the match that we see as the kind of de facto number one contenders match, but it certainly could be. Especially if Osprey wins, I think he's got that. He's established that he's got that ego that he's just gonna then go ask, right? So, I think we're in for a ride. I think we're in for a classic. I hope that there's no shenanigans. I know Okada has a lot to say about that, and I think if there's no shenanigans, maybe Okada's the guy who's gonna win. But Osprey, I just don't think we saw enough of him to know where he's at physically, like as a wrestler right now, in a sense of like, is he IWGP Heavyweight Championship material, or is he still, establishing himself as a heavyweight?
Well, these days he's definitely at that level. That was an evil Naito slight, if you guys didn't get it.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough one to predict here. I think there's cases to be made either way here. I'm personally going with Kozushiko Okada getting the win here, just because he had such an off 2020. I feel like this is going to kind of be like a reset for him and to kind of get him started back, in that main event scene and back in the title picture. Because I think, Osprey could we all agree we think this is going to be like a long-term kind of rivalry between these guys. And so Osprey could always beat him again down the line to get in the title picture and to elevate himself. But I do think, getting Okada kind of reestablished will make a ton of sense here and get the big win.
I'll make one last appeal to the opposite opinion. I think the Empire really needs something here as the big jumping off point. I do agree that Okada has had a wonky year and he's had some weird losses, but he is still Okada and he could easily, just like you said, Will Ospreay could get the win later, but you know what? So could Okada. My whole thing is Ospreay's the head of this faction. If the indications are correct, this faction looks to be like a big deal. And I think that if he loses on night one, I'm not saying it's going to be a failure or anything, but it does kind of handicap the group quite a bit. At that point, it kind of seems like everything falls on Jeff Cobb to kind of like, someone's got to get a win. Yeah. I think Will Ospreay is kind of destined to like get the big win here, especially since Kata's beat Ospreay almost every time they've ever fought. And the one time Ospreay won, it was with huge shenanigans. I think he needs it more than Okada needs it. I think the group needs it. I think the faction is dependent on it in a certain sense.
Yeah, I get that. I think that Osprey needs to establish himself as the big dog, right? So winning clean would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? I think winning clean would do that. Winning with shenanigans, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I mean, here's another little tidbit, right? Okada hasn't won a match or hasn't attempted a Rainmaker since February. So is this the moment, right? Is this the moment where he goes back to his roots, rears back, smacks Will with a Rainmaker and pins him? Or is this the moment where he finally tries it again, Osprey's ready for it, and then counters with God knows what, right? So that's something to keep an eye out for, I think.
Here's one thing to consider too. The previous 5, main matches we've discussed. You could make an argument as a fan of this product, having watched it over the last 12 months, and say there could be shenanigans or cheating in this match, because in every single one of these past 5 matches, there is someone who has cheated on a major level, and that's going to continue into night 2. So I am hoping that maybe we get a departure of that and we get more clean finishes and more just straight up clean matches across the board, because it is Wrestle Kingdom. But that's just kind of a commentary on the state of New Japan. Like, we got 5 matches here, and ELP Hiromu, I could see someone cheating. GOD against Dangerous T, I could see some cheating. Tanahashi Okan, I could see some cheating. Like, there's a lot of it on this card, hypothetically.
Right.
I hope they don't do that.
And one thing to kind of help the claim for an Osprey win that I just thought about is, you look back into the build to Wrestle Kingdom 13 for Okada versus Jay White. Okada was coming off of the broken balloon Okada, having kind of a crazy year. And then the Rainmaker was back at Wrestle Kingdom 13. Everybody thought he was going to beat Jay White. Then Jay beat him in the fastest time he's ever been beaten.
15 minutes.
At the Tokyo Dome. So this could be a similar situation here where we're thinking, 2020 was a rough year for Okada. Rainmaker's going to be back at Wrestle Kingdom 15. He's going to beat Osprey and kind of be back on top. But this could be a similar situation where Osprey beats him and beats him clean like Jay did. And Okada still has to try and rebound.
Well, we used to say you don't bet against the ace in the Dome. But since then, he's been beaten by at least 3 different opponents. So maybe it'll be 4, maybe not. It would put him in rare company if Osprey were to beat him. It'd put him up there with Tanahashi, Naito, and Jay White, which is a big deal.
Yeah, what's Okada's overall Dome record, Chris?
Overall in the Tokyo Dome, Kazuchika Okada installing.
I was like, wow, this is amazing. We didn't pre-plan this.
Overall 6-7. Singles 6-4. So all of his wins are singles.
And 2 of those losses are against Tanahashi.
2 to Tanahashi, 1 to Naito, 1 to Jay White. The Jay White match, 15 minutes and 18 seconds.
Oh my God.
Yeah, right. As noted. So, yeah, tough to bet against Okada in the Dome, but Osprey's 2-1.
When I bet, I look for value, and this is the value pick right here. I would put my money on Osprey.
I think I might swing my prediction to Osprey now.
Well, let's move on to the big match, the match everyone is wondering about.
Well, we had 2 questions here. Keep jumping ahead, buddy. First from Rambo and Slam Pig. He says, Okada recently made some comments about his desire to put on IWGP level matches and his lack of interest in the double title situation. Do you think he will ultimately be the one to facilitate the titles being split? If that's actually the plan going forward, would that make Naito more likely to retain the Dome in order to be the one to drop the belts to Okada, or would one of the other matches make more sense?
Well, one thing I'll say is I'm a big fan of titles, and I'm also a big fan of belts. And I understand that those 2 things are not the same thing. A title is recognition. A belt is a trophy that is awarded to someone in recognition, but you don't always need a belt to be recognized as the best, It's a title belt, but it's not the actual title itself. And I say that to say this. I think he is throwing slight at the level of the IWGP title over the past year, just like many of us are. Maybe he's been listening to some Keepin It Strong style. I don't know. Maybe he's leaning into, our opinions, but there's probably some work there. There's probably some shoot there, because the title was viewed in a different light when it was held by the likes of Okada than it was over the past, year when, say, Evil was holding it. And also there's not from me watching this product, there's not a lot of oversight on what the guys say in their promos. They kind of just say whatever the fuck they want to say. So maybe this is more realistic than we even realize, but ultimately I think it's awesome that he's kind of proclaiming that he's gonna go back to the IWGP title level, which is funny for him to be saying because he's had a year that was anything but IWGP level. But if he is having matches of that caliber and he is seen to be working at that level, which we all know he's capable of, then it would create a situation where you've got this guy over here holding 2 belts, but then this guy over here who is the guy. And it almost seemed like they were creating that situation this year by initially announcing that Naito and Osprey was going to headline night 1, and then they eventually did switch it. But that was the initial, what it was going to be, which tells you the star power of Kazuchika Okada. But, to answer the question here, they said basically going forward, would it make sense for Naito to retain, or would one of the other matches make sense? I think there's money down the line for Okada and Naito, but it doesn't have to be 4 months from now. It doesn't have to be 6 months from now. It could be a year from now. I also think that they could tell a story a year from now with him and Ibushi.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to do I think it's going to be a little bit of a longer form story than people are probably anticipating with Okada. I think Okada's going to do his thing, kind of work through the ranks, and then by the time they're ready to crown him again, it'll probably be next year. And if they do crown
the G1,
yeah, he'll probably win the G1 and then probably win at the Tokyo Dome, which by that point maybe people will want it again. So
yeah, I could definitely see Okada being the one that wants to get the belts split up, and maybe whenever he does challenge, only challenges for the IWGP title. And I know one of the interviews he did mention maybe he just needs to get behind the whole idea of being a double champion, and so maybe he just drops his hate for the double titles and just goes for it and becomes double champion eventually.
That's how they're gonna split the belts. It's gonna be like, fuck this white belt.
What do you think, Chris?
I can't imagine Okada carrying 2 belts, and I can't imagine Okada carrying the Intercontinental. So whether he's the guy who splits it or initiates splitting it, I think that's a certain possibility. I think if he wins this match in a defining way, he could be one of those early in the year challengers. If they do a challenge at one of the New Beginning shows or Castle Attack, he could certainly be that challenger. He's earned that. He's earned the ability to win one big match and say, no, I'm ready. Right. So do I think that's how it's going to go? Probably not. I don't think so. I think that I think Okada needs a full redemption tour.
Yeah.
And I think he hasn't won the G1 in quite a while. I think 2012. It's been a while. Yeah. So I think a big G1 win and a big run with some classics, right? That, hopefully he's in a block with really, heavy competitors again. And then, the Dome next year, maybe 2022. I think that's Okada's path. I think that's his most likely path back to IWGP glory. I've been wrong before. I mean, he won the New Japan Cup and won the IWGP in Madison Square Garden. I mean, like that was quite the path up as well. So he can heat up really quickly when he decides to.
Yeah.
When I was rambling about titles and belts, that was kind of a nod to Rich. What's up, Rich Latta? The reason I brought that up is just because in other sports, like in boxing, that is how it's seen. A belt is a belt, but recognition is a totally separate thing. And we've seen situations where someone might be recognized as like the champ, but then there's someone else who's like beating all the competition, and they're kind of like slowly being recognized as the guy while someone else maybe holds the belt. They're not, yes, technically they beat the man to become the man, but they're fighting like paper challengers along the way. Mm-hmm. And then you got this other guy over here who's beating killers, and they don't have any belts, and they're kind of getting avoided. And it's sort of like, well, who really is the best? What is a title to begin with? It's recognition of who's the best in the division. And I love that idea of like, what if there was like a double champ? I mean, it does kind of remind me of what was going on with like Kenny and Okada when they were kind of kept apart and they had like parallel lines until they re-met, Mm-hmm. I would love if something like that were to happen, if like Okada has his own redemption arc and he slowly gets recognition where it's like, okay, he's fucking ready to like get this shit back, Yeah. And he's wrestling at that IWGP level again. He's having those style matches with guys, but not for the belt. And then when he starts doing that, people would clamor for him and whoever, Naito or Ibushi or Jay White or whoever the fuck,
Yeah. And the other question here was from our user Jay Spammer. It says, English commentary has been hyping up that there is a financial backer for the Empire. Any thoughts on who it could be? My short list is Jericho, Tanahashi, or the Mole in Chaos.
Lord Gideon Gray? I don't know.
I mean, that is a potential answer there. You know, Gideon Gray did have an affiliation with Okan in Rev Pro, so I know a lot of people have been pointing back to that. There is a rumors that came out earlier. Jericho's supposed to be a part of the Empire, but also due to COVID, that those plans got scrapped. So, I mean, Jericho could be the guy that they do it with eventually when he can come back in.
Bro, what if it's Big Bicep Tony?
Oh, man. That's the way the door opens.
The forbidden door's been open for a long time, pal. You haven't noticed? Everyone's been telling me it's been open for a while.
What do you think, Chris?
I don't know. I haven't thought much of it.
It's probably one of those things you don't need to think about because it's probably nothing.
Yeah, and I don't know. It could be anyone at that rate. I mean, I didn't think Great Okan was going to be the guy who ran in on the Okada match. So it's Osprey's keeping things close to the chest.
What if it's Don Callis and Kenny Omega?
Oh my gosh.
There's probably people groaning right now hearing that.
It was me on mute.
Well, let's move on here to the main event of night one for the IWGP Heavyweight title and IWGP Intercontinental title. The double champion, Tetsuya Naito, the Keeping It Strong Style 2020 Wrestler of the Year, will be defending the titles against the G1 Climax winner, the Golden Star, Kota Ibushi. So what are we thinking here, guys?
Someone's neck's in trouble. That's what I'm thinking.
Who knows? I don't really know what to think of this, honestly. I love Kota Ibushi. I love that he won the G1 twice in a row. I'm not sure how. I mean, I get it. I get Naito, fighting champ, challenges Ibushi because he won the G1, but Ibushi lost the briefcase. So, but here we are. We had to put it all together, and these guys will. I was really excited for this match when the G1 ended. I'm equally excited for the match to happen. Is this another situation where the guy who comes into the two dome shows with open hands and empty hands, right? So like Naito last year, Naito came in, he wasn't the Intercontinental Champion, he wasn't the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, and he didn't have the briefcase, but he was there. He got to be in part of the double gold dash, the original. So, and now here we are with Ibushi. Is Ibushi going to come in empty-handed and leave, with arms full of gold? Maybe. I don't know. But it's interesting to see how we got here.
Yeah, agreed. So I think there's two ways to look at this. Well, first off, before I even analyze the outcome, let me just say Naito and Ibushi, one of my favorite matchups in New Japan history. They never fail to have classic matches. These two guys are made for each other. I think they might be possibly each other's best opponent within New Japan. 8 classics. They're going to add a 9th. I can't see them having less than a 4-star match in the main event of a Tokyo Dome for the IWGP title. Like, the stakes don't get any better or bigger. So, I mean, they're gonna fucking kill it. And I think they can sleepwalk their way to a 4-star match. I think it'll probably end up being one of the best matches of the night. Maybe even a match of the year contender. Maybe the match of the year. Who knows? But all that being said, I mean, there's two ways to look at it. Naito and Jay White, to me, makes the most marketing sense as far as star power, as far as, it's weird because White has faced both these guys in recent times, so you don't really have a protected second night main event either way. But I think from star power standpoint, the two biggest stars out of these three are Jay White and Tetsuya Naito. So if you're looking for like the match that has the more like, big names, that's the one you go with. Plus, in my opinion, those two guys have had some okay matches, but I don't think they've ever had a real classic. Some people would disagree, but I think that they could go out there and maybe try and top everything they've done before. with that being set aside, I think from a business standpoint, maybe that's what you do. But on the other hand, Naito got jobbed out twice in the Dome last year and then won the G1 for a second time in a row this year. And it seems that he's poised to potentially, win the titles, and then he drops the belt to Jay White. And it's sort of like if he were to drop the briefcase to Jay White, win this title opportunity based off charity, and then lose again, it's like, what was the whole story arc for to begin with? And not only that, but like Naito's never won the title, and he's like,
Ibushi.
I'm sorry, Ibushi, my bad. And he's getting older, and he signed this lifetime, contract with the company. What are we doing here? If you're not going to pull the trigger on Ibushi and go with him now, then win. When is the time to do it? Like, I don't think that they've set it up better than now to finally go with the guy. Like, they did this whole redemption arc, and ultimately none of these matches, like I mentioned, are really protected matches when it comes to the Jay White on the second night. But between the two of them, I've seen Jay White and Kota Ibushi go out there and have a match of the year caliber level match in the G1 last year, and I think they could do it again this year. So if I was gonna hedge my bets as to which match would be more classic, what would have the big stakes, I think that you go with Ibushi. I understand for business reasons why you might go Naito, but I think they need to go Ibushi. I think he has to win here. It's the thing that makes the most sense. And if they don't go with him, like I mentioned, Dave Meltzer's been using this term, booking malpractice. I would actually believe that it is booking malpractice to not go with Ibushi at this point, because they've had him for so many years. They've never gone with the guy. This is your chance. If you don't do it now, when the fuck are you going to do it?
Ibushi 2-6 in the Tokyo Dome on a 3-match losing streak. He's due, certainly. And, I think that I agree with everything Josh is saying, to be honest. I think it's worth a shot. I think he's also the guy who he has something to fight for against Jay White, because he was done dirty, right? So I think that's the match that on paper makes the most sense to get to. And I think more than anything, potentially that's Kota Ibushi's motivation going into night 1, is that he wants that match with Jay White on night 2 to avenge the loss of the briefcase.
Right.
Right. So not that Naito and Jay White don't have a ton of history that goes way back, but I think, Ibushi's got stakes against both of these guys.
Also, Ibushi's 5-3 against Naito all time, so he also kind of has Naito's number.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think Ibushi is going to win. It should be the guy that wins this. Like you guys made it makes a ton of sense. Obviously, you build that heat of Jay cheating to get the briefcase off of him, so you can see Ibushi get that comeuppance and get that revenge and face Jay White on the second night and beat Jay and retain the titles and leave Tokyo Dome with the double titles. Like you were saying, Josh, yeah, I think it would be a complete waste of time, for Naito to win and do Naito Jay, or Ibushi beat Naito and then Ibushi lose to Jay and have Jay leave the double title. I think this needs to be Ibushi's nights, and he needs to win both nights here at the Dome. Which we have an interesting question here that kind of goes against what we're thinking here from Reddit user. Why you do that, bro? This is a long question. I'm really struggling to see why people think Ibushi's winning. I'm not against it at all, but the booking doesn't add up. I just can't wrap my head around the idea that a power struggle semi-main event will be main eventing the Tokyo Dome. Naito would also have yet another title reign with only one defense. This reminds me of Wrestle Kingdom 12 when everyone thought Naito was winning, and he didn't because there was the bigger long-term story at play. Naito finally looking directly at Okada during his entrance instead of turning his back to him or looking to the side. It took Okada and Naito 3 tries to win a Dome main event, and Naito has yet to win one on January 4th, and he might not get many other chances. I think Ibushi's big title win could be saved for when people can go to shows at full capacity and when the belts are split. So my question is, why does everyone believe Ibushi is 100% winning And do you guys believe people are setting themselves up for disappointment like in 2018?
I think it's a great question. One thing that makes me nervous, why did you do that, bro? Won our G1 Pick'em contest, not this year, but the year before.
Yeah.
Which is like a daunting task. So it's like he's got a pretty good track record at like predicting stuff. But you know who else has a really good track record when it comes to the Tokyo Dome?
You.
Me. I have never gotten a main event wrong since we started doing this show, including the year that Naito beat Okada.
You mean Okada beat Naito?
God. Well, that year too. Both years. So, you know, he brings up some good things here. You know, he mentioned that one of these matches was a power struggle main event. But you know what? None of these match outcomes, like I've mentioned several times, are protected. I mean, we've seen them on like, didn't we see Jay White and Naito at like Power Struggle last year or something like that? It was like late in the year after the G1, right?
It was Destruction.
Yeah, it's Destruction. So you're telling me a Destruction main event is going to main event the Tokyo Dome? You see how that logic works there? It's the same shit. So it's like ultimately, you know, those were matches that happened a long time ago. We're at a different point, and I think we're at a transition point in where New Japan is right now. That's why we don't have a protected quote unquote main event for night 2. You know, I think going forward after this, if Gato's continuing to book, we'll probably have protected matches once again. We're not at that point now. Now we're getting matches that are, you know, kind of seen more often.
And plus, we're not trying to draw for 2 full nights at the Dome.
Yeah, but they're not trying to draw 40K.
Right. So why would you throw away a quote unquote protected matchup here with, especially now when they had to stop selling tickets and there's going to be 11,000 people both nights. And then you wait until you can get a bigger audience and do your more protected matchup. But either way, I think Ibushi versus Jay White is still, I think, a drawing matchup or a big matchup, especially coming off of the angle of Jay cheating to get the briefcase from Ibushi.
Last couple things, he mentioned waiting until crowds come back to crown Ibushi. Who the fuck knows when that's going to be? That could be 2 years from now. It could be 5 years from now. We don't know when that's actually going to literally be, you know? So, I mean, do you penalize this guy because we're in this terrible situation? Like, no. Like, you know what I mean? The other thing, too, is like, I think at the time when Naito lost to Okada, I had mentioned that there was more money in the chase for him to lose to Okada, and it made more sense to go with the historic reign of Okada, which all proved to be true. I'm telling you right now, there is not more money in pushing Ibushi down at this point. That will only make you less money. The only caveat there is that Naito is in the middle of a run, and people really do love him. And yes, for business reasons, it might make sense for him to win both nights and go on and continue forward, because they're making money with him, and I think that they would continue to draw him. Maybe it's riskier to go with Ibushi now. But ultimately, from a story standpoint, there's not more money in that chase. There's not more money in him losing here. I think that you need to go with him. If you're going to take the risk ever, now's the time. So I totally disagree respectfully with why did you do that, bro? But from a story standpoint, it's the only outcome that actually makes sense. For the reasons that Chris laid out, for the reasons that we've laid out, he has to chase these two guys, and that's the whole story of this double main event, is the redemption of Ibushi and him getting his comeuppance and him getting his just due, which would be a big deal.
What I will say is that any of these 3 guys could credibly walk out of the Tokyo Dome on January 5th holding both belts.
That's true.
No, I have no issue with any of the 3. I don't think Naito's done being a champion. Even if he loses here, I think he still stays in that mix. I don't think Jay White's first run was not, it wasn't the run that he wants it to be, and I don't think it's his defining run. I don't know that Jay White will have his defining run as champion as a member of the Bullet Club. So, but maybe he will. Maybe if he can pull it off on January 5th, then that's what happens. And obviously Ibushi, it's the last thing. It's the only thing he hasn't done, right? He's won the G1. He's won Best of Super Juniors. He's been junior heavyweight champion, intercontinental champion, never the man has done everything there is to do in New Japan except hold that big belt. So is he going to do it here? Maybe. If ever, I think if ever, it's going to be there. And I think it'd be really hard to heat him back up. And I think it'd be really dejecting for him to go through all the winning the G1 twice. And, maybe Ibushi is Chono.
Don't say that.
But I mean, like, you see it, right?
No, Naito's Chono. Naito's Chono in his generation. Don't wish that evil on Ibushi.
I don't want, you guys know. I mean, me and Kota, we go way back. I'm looking at his brawler guy right here. He lives on my desk. But maybe he's just the tournament winner.
Oh no,
man. Well,
that is possible.
It is. It is.
I mean, but here's my final problem with that. If fucking Evil can win this title, then Ibushi needs to win this title.
Yeah, seriously.
But it's not a meritocracy. It's not
Yeah, man. I think Ibushi's the right call. But since we're kind of talking about double titles in the main event for night 2, let's start at the main event.
Oh, we're starting at the top. Nice.
And work our way down the card. So we're going to work off the assumption that all 3 of our predictions are correct and that Kota Ibushi will face Jay White on night 2 for the double titles. And so I think...
I'm fine throwing out there a soundbite for either scenario. I don't really care, but I think we're right.
Yeah. So if we're all right and it's Ibushi versus Jay, we're thinking Ibushi is walking away with double straps.
I think it's the story that makes sense for all the reasons we just laid out.
Oh, I hope so.
The other thing too is it's very rare for them to have the heel win at Wrestle Kingdom. I don't know that it's ever happened, to be honest.
But there's a lot of main events that don't have a hard heel.
Really? I think they almost always have. I mean, I could think of 2 or 3.
I mean, a true bad guy.
Yeah, that's true.
Irredeemable, like Jay White.
Okay, yes, they don't always have an irredeemable, but when Kojima wrestled Tanahashi, it was very clear Kojima was the heel. Or the first 2 Okada matches, it was clear Okada was the heel.
Yes, but they lean towards the middle way more than Jay White.
That's true. I agree.
Right, and even going back to Omega Tanahashi, that was confusing. Quick switch, it was clear. It was clear, right?
It wasn't confusing. It was about philosophies. What didn't you get?
Deep.
It was so nuanced.
I hate these double title, these 2-night things. It's hard to predict.
Again, to simplify the point I was making, it would be a rarity for them to have a heel because they like to send the fans home happy on the biggest show of the year. Mm-hmm. It is very typical for them to have a feel-good story like they did last year. Now, did they close the show with Kenta sitting on the chest of Naito? Yes, they did. But, Naito, the record book still show Naito winning. So I would be very surprised if Jay White won. But he's due for one eventually at some point. It's going to happen. Maybe this is the time. Potentially. And
I will say, he does look pretty good holding those double titles.
Oh, my God.
That man looks like a superstar.
Oh, my God, did he look good.
That man looks
like... he's ready. He's ready for the reign of his life. I mean, here's the other thing. How much would it suck for Ibushi to win on night 1 and lose on night 2?
It would... horrible.
Oh, it would suck.
That's the get his picture in the intro title reign. That I don't know that I could come back from that. You'd never hear from me again.
That's okay. So we had a question previously and they're is everyone setting themselves up for failure? And I'm like, nah, Bushi's going to win both nights. But what if he won the first night, but then did lose the second night? That would be
that'd be horrible.
Bro, that is literally that. I know it's not standard booking when it comes to the IWGP title but it is the kind of booking that Gato does when he books tragedies, and he loves that kind of shit. I don't think there's ever been an IWGP title reign that short.
There's not.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that would be horrible. That should not. If Ibushi is not going to win night 2, then he just needs to lose to Naito on night 1.
The shortest reign is Tenryu at 25 days. That would suck. Oh my! But you know what? I'm not like in favor of this company booking Heat, but
I mean, you kind of love it. I can see it in your face.
There is a part of me that's like, would there be money in another match between Jay White and Ibushi down the line if, like, A, he lost his briefcase to this fool, and then B, he got beat the next day for the title? Oh my God, would I be like so up for that Dominion match down the road?
You definitely said that. Yeah, you took the briefcase, you took the titles. Like, Jay White has totally ruined this man's life.
I hope they don't do this.
And there could be a potential build there in having Ibushi chase Jay, but
no, get out of my head, guys. This is what's happening. Ibushi is avenging. He's beating everybody, and that's that. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope. I hope, but you're right about the tragedy thing, and Ibushi has had his tragedies, right? When he keeps getting the chances and never quite gets the real chance. Last year he lost 2 in the Tokyo Dome. Maybe this year he only loses 1, but it might be the big one.
My odds-on prediction is that whoever wins night 1 is going to be Jay White. That's what I think, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm going with Ibushi winning both nights.
I think so too, and I think if Naito wins, he's going to win both nights either way.
Yeah.
But man, I don't know. This got me questioning things. One fun thing I threw out there, I don't know if you heard this, Chris, but last week we were kind of looking through the history, and out of all the domestic talent that has ever won the IWGP title, there have only been 2 men who were not trained in the New Japan Dojo originally that have won the belt, and that's Tenryu and Takayama. So, that the last time that was like, what, 2002, 2003? That's a long time ago. That would be, if Ibushi did win, that would be a huge fucking deal.
Yeah, that's a big deal. He's been with New Japan for so long that you forget that he's not an original.
Right.
Or, it's not where he started. I mean, maybe you don't forget that because he has such history with DDT. But, yeah, I mean, and maybe that's why it's taking so long to strap him up and give him that reign, because it is a big deal.
And that's the thing, too, is like, no one's denying the talent of Ibushi, but I mean, like, when Tenryu and Takayama won their belts, they were like big established draws, big established stars, came in with a lot of notoriety, a lot of history. They were already legends by the time that them winning the belt was just adding a little accolade to their already Hall of Fame careers. It's not like that for Ibushi. Ibushi is clawing his way to the top, and so it is wholly unique, just like he is.
Yeah. Ibushi's got to win this. Also, I think
He's got to do this shit. Let's go.
Jeremy's just like shutting it down. He's like, he's got to win. He's got to win.
I think Ibushi versus Jay it's a better potential matchup out of Naito and Jay. If you had to pick one, I think Ibushi and Jay would deliver a better main event matchup than Naito and Jay.
And on that note too, I'm much more excited for night 1 than whatever night 2 is going to end up being as far as the main event scene. Like, there's the intrigue of like, we don't know who's going to win, obviously. So there is that little X factor there. But I mean, I know what I'm getting with Ibushi and Naito.
Right.
Like, I know that those guys are going to go out there and tear the house down. But like, when it comes to Jay White, Jay White's fantastic. We praise him, but I mean, sometimes he misses.
Yeah.
Jay White's got time too. And kind of like I said earlier, my belief is that I don't think Jay White's going to have his defining IWGP Heavyweight Championship run as a member or the leader of Bullet Club. So I think that I think he will unlock his potential and unleash his own talent if he's able to step away from that.
Yeah, I definitely think there's big money in Jay as babyface, and yeah, maybe that's the time he becomes a champion when he eventually leaves Bullet Club and kind of switches sides
and forms the Makai Club Part 2.
But let's move on here to the semi-main event. We have another similar situation here. Taiji Ishimori defending against the winner of Hiromu in ELP. I think we're all very confident here that Hiromu is beating ELP on night one, and we're getting Hiromu versus Taiji here in the semi-main.
Well, it's the junior title, so I mean, there's more leeway to go one way or the other. But I just don't have confidence in Taiji Ishimori as champion currently, and I don't know that the company does either, based on the booking of the Best of the Super Juniors. I mean, there's no denying the talent that is Taiji Ishimori. He's fantastic, but, you know, he's hot and he's cold. And right now he feels lukewarm. So I think that it makes sense to either recrown Hiromu, since he pretty much is the division, or, you know, if you're going to go with ELP, then you should go with ELP. The only thing is we don't know if ELP is even like staying in the country, what the deal is. So I think there's also that travel restriction, hurdle that's going against him too. And another reason why I think it makes sense for Hiromu to just win.
Well, there were only 3 IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship matches in 2020, and the holder of the belt lived in Japan the entire year. So I don't know that I mean, maybe it matters more in 2021, but they didn't use it. They didn't use it when they had it. So, and that's not because it was on Ishimori. I think it's just the nature of where they see that title, and Hiromu got tied up with New Japan Cup, and then got tied up, chasing down Evil, and then lost the belt, and Ishimori then got, caught up in Best of Super Juniors and the Junior Tag League, mini Junior Tag League, I guess we'll call it. So that's not a belt that typically sits on ice that long. So I think we will see a fighting champion one way or the other, whether it's Ishimori or Hiromu. If I had to guess, I'd say Hiromu again wins at Wrestle Kingdom, establishes, this is going to be his, another big defining reign. I just don't know who's around to challenge him.
Wato.
Right.
Desperado. I don't know.
I mean, there's something with the Desperado match again, but I don't think you can keep going back to that well for this long. And the Best of Super Juniors was definitely a blow off, but I think that there's some work to do in that division, and that's a shame because it's typically my favorite division as guys kind of come in and out of it.
I think the junior division will be fine going forward. I think the only reason that it was on ice was just because, like you mentioned, I don't think it was because they see the titles being low. It's semi-main eventing. I think it was just because the way the calendar fell, honestly. And I think that's all it really was, because of because this year was so reliant on tournaments, and they based all their tours off of it.
Right, like we mentioned.
10 tournaments, 31% of all New Japan matches in 2020 were part of a tournament.
That's insane.
We watched all of them, but I will tell you the truth, guys. I'm going to confess. I did not watch the Lion. What was it called? The Lions
Break
Lions
Crown.
Break Crown?
I did not watch the Lions Break Crown.
And like we mentioned on the show,
it was kind of a fun little tournament. I'm not gonna lie.
It probably was actually. It didn't sound bad. I just didn't watch it.
And something else that affected the junior division, obviously COVID. We've talked about on the show before, with the junior division being highly relying on imports and bringing in people in from other countries. So that was another reason why the division kind of felt like on ice this year. But yeah, I think Hiromu winning makes the most sense here. Again, it's a similar story to Bushi's story, where Hiromu's coming in. Also, he wasn't really cheated out of the title. He lost pretty much fair and square to Ishimori. He came into that match with a shoulder injury, and Ishimori kind of exploited that injury to his benefit to win the title. So there is, Hiromu kind of being embarrassed by losing to Ishimori at Summer Struggle in Jingu on one of the biggest shows that they had in the year. So Hiromu wanted to get some revenge. He beat him in Super Juniors, but now the title's on the lines where it really matters. So I think Hiromu getting his revenge and beating Ishimori here in the Dome, so my main event, I think that's the way to go.
One other thing, too, is I think Hiromu is this generation's Liger, just based off the booking. And Liger didn't lose Super Juniors just to turn around and drop title opportunities. That motherfucker clinched up those title opportunities. So Hiromu's not about to lose, not about to win a Super Juniors and then lose his title shot. Like, it's not going to happen, especially not in the Dome. Oh, man, that's bad audio. Next week, I'm going to be so wrong. Do we have any consideration for LP, or we're pretty much, it's Hiromu?
I mean,
I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked, too. I will say this. If they did decide to do that, it could be huge. That's the one thing. We're talking about, like, everything's kind of blase when it comes to the junior division. If they did decide to go with the guy and do something out of left field and exciting, that would be a huge, like, story and moment and everything like that. Who knows? There's a lot of creative avenues you could go with that, direction.
Yeah, I'll still be surprised if they did that.
Me too. I'm just exploring all the options, man.
Well, he's just making sure it gets recorded so you can come back to it.
Right.
And
so
have a picture of it no matter what happens.
Do you guys remember last week when I said ELP was taking this shit? So let's talk about Sonata Evil, the match everyone wants to see.
Yeah, big grudge match here with former tag team partners, former tag champions. Normally, these guys are in a tag title match at the Dome, but with Evil's turn, these guys are facing off of each other. We've seen the build here, Sonata kind of breaking his kind of Cold Skull moniker and showing a lot of fury and anger towards Evil, and just the wild, crazy brawl that they've been having on the Road to Tokyo Dome shows. So a clearly heated personal matchup here.
Sonata participated in the second most matches in New Japan in 2020. That is 87. Yes, 87. Evil participated in matches, indeed, that people talked about a lot.
I know we did. I mean, I don't know, man. Sonata, he lost every, tournament final that he went to this year. He won no titles this year. There's every time he had an opportunity, he lost when it really counted. And so, there's probably that redemption angle where it's he needs to be Evil. He's his former partner. He turned on him. He lost his big opportunity against, Zack Sabre in the Dome last year. Maybe he could turn it around. This is his big kicking off party. I'm going to say, you don't put a double crown on a guy in one calendar year and then have him job to a loser at the Tokyo Dome a few months later. So, I mean, I think it's pretty open and shut. Evil's beating Sonata in the Dome to move on and show that he apparently is the Shawn Michaels to Sonata's Marty Jannetty.
Sonata 10-8 in singles matches in 2020. Evil 13-6. Sonata 6-1 in the last 90 days. The one loss being the loss to Ibushi. So Sonata definitely heated up towards the end of the G1. Evil obviously has the loss to Naito under his belt here too. I don't know that there's any path forward for Evil, even if he wins. I guess depending on who walks out with the double gold, but if Sonata wins, maybe you could see him making a case to heat up, or maybe really, stake his claim at New Japan Cup and maybe get into that double gold or IWGP level championship match again. But
here's my question about that. To do what? To lose again?
I don't know.
Because that's the deal. I don't see Sonata winning this title ever. So it's what? To heat up around April like he does every year just to lose? Is that his deal? Is he the April guy that just fucking loses?
You need challengers lined up. I think I'm gonna go with Sonata as well.
Traitor.
Here's my thinking here is the fact that, yes, he has lost so many big moments. Evil has had a lot of big moments and winning the New Japan Cup, winning the double titles, being in all these main events with Naito, I feel like Evil losing, like, I don't think that big of a deal because he was a former champion and could be easily thrown into a title match because he was a former champion.
That makes sense.
As far as Sonata not really having any big accomplishments in 2020, I think beating a former double champion would be great for him and it could elevate him for 2021. It doesn't have to be a double title match. Maybe he, depending on what happens in the next match we'll talk about with Shingo and Cobb, maybe Sonata goes and never, or maybe you have Sonata and Shingo go after the winner of Tekers and GOD until you're ready to kind of heat Sonata back up for a singles role. I think there's a lot of options you can go, and I think Sonata versus any of the double Gold Dash guys makes sense. I think Sonata versus Ibushi makes sense. Sonata versus Naito would be intriguing, and Sonata versus Jay White makes sense. So I think he could be a potential double challenger, maybe a Castle Attack or whatever big show after that.
I agree with you, except for the fact that it's like it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense because he's lost so many times in so many title challenges that it's just like, what, to set him up for more failure? Like let's really establish the guy before we give him another one of these big quote unquote shots. That's my only.
I mean, he was in the G1 final,
and he lost, and no one was talking about it afterwards.
Which is, but that's a step towards establishment, without a doubt, to make it to the G1 final. He was the guy that ran, he had the big long streak that got him into the G1 final. So I don't think it's, I think you're right. Nobody was talking about it. But I don't think that can be ignored. Yeah. Is that he was positioned, he won a block and was in the G1 final. Like, that's a big deal.
I'm at this point where, like, I kind of feel like Sonata isn't signed exclusively. I don't think they're as invested in him as Evil. I just don't think they are. And I'm pretty sure they're going to put Evil over, especially since my logic is this. I think we're getting a lot of feel-good stories on the show. A heel's got to win somewhere. It might as well be Evil, the guy that they've put all their, energy behind and given these huge moments and these huge title runs and yada yada. I think plus Sonata beat Evil in the G1, and like it's time for Evil to get his comeuppance. I think that the things you guys are saying are logical, but I think at the end of the day, I'm gonna be right here. I think Evil's winning in the Dome because I think that they just have way more invested in him.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the match going either way, but I don't know. I'm just feeling Sonata here.
Plus, I think Evil against whoever wins makes a lot of sense too. And Evil has had a lot less title challenge failures. I think he could lose, and maybe that could be the catalyst.
He's lost 2 in a row.
To who?
Naito.
Yeah, but I'm talking like, yeah, but compared to like Sonata has lost lots of times, way more than that.
Yes. 2 in a row in quick succession, very recently. Nobody can justify putting Evil back in an IWGP Heavyweight Championship match.
Well, I can, because I don't care about the guy, so just job him out, fuck him, and then that will set up, and then there'll be like a vote of no confidence in him, and that will kind of set up the like split between him and Jay White. Like, you're a fucking loser, you can't win the belt. Well, you didn't win the belt either. All right, well, let's just implode. No more Bullet Club. I like that story.
I don't think Bullet Club's going away anytime soon.
Oh my God, it needs to. It needs to go away eventually.
But
it'll change, I think. I think you're gonna see it. I think you're gonna see an evolution here.
Jay's been wearing a lot of red, so I think we're gonna get
Wolfpack.
Bullet Club Wolfpack.
If they do that, that's a death knell.
Don't turn your back on the Wolfpack. Might end up in a body bag.
I might have said some outrageous things when it comes to this segment, but the one thing I'm not wrong about, Evil's not losing to Sonata.
Well, we'll find out January 5th.
We'll see.
And also,
here's the thing. No match matters less to me than this match.
Oh, I 100%. Well, the women's matches, but other than that, Jeremy didn't pop for my joke.
Living his gimmick.
I'm just joking. I would love to watch those matches, but we're not gonna be able to. So
yeah. But something we will be able to watch is the never open weight title match between the Dragon Shingo Takagi and the Hatchet Jeff Cobb, representing the Empire.
My most anticipated match for night 2.
Yeah, I'm really digging Jeff Cobb as a heel. I think he's been more entertaining to watch. I think he's been fitting that kind of big bruiser role very well and just been such a monster. And I think we're going to see the story here, like we saw in the Royal Tokyo Dome with Shingo not being able to, easily outpower Cobb, and Shingo really having to fight from underneath to get the best of Cobb. So Shingo's going to be kind of coming in as the underdog in this match from the size and power perspective, and he's going to have to work really hard to get Cobb up for that last of the Dragon.
Shingo, the Iron Man of New Japan in 2020 with 88 matches, which is significantly lower than him being the Iron Man in 2019 with, how many was it? Shoot, I had it. 152 matches. So
Wrestler of the Year.
Should have been.
Either way, Shingo's been a guy who's been dependable. He's been a really good never champion. He lost it to Suzuki at some point, or at Summer Struggle, and eventually had to fight to get it back. But Shingo Cobb is a match that I think a lot of people have gotten their hopes up for. Great matches, really competitive matches in the past, and I don't know that they've had their defining battle, and I hope that this is it. Like, that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm not sure how to call this. I think it could go either way, and there's a lot of paths forward. Shingo is not done being a champion. Shingo's not done taking on challengers. Cobb hasn't had that opportunity in a big way either. And I think this new attitude from Jeff Cobb lends himself very well to being a really strong champion. And maybe this is his slot. Maybe the never open weight space is his slot within the Empire.
I think this matchup, I think it's going to end up being their best New Japan matchup. With there now being some more story element behind it, with having a clearly defined babyface and heel, and Cobb doing a great job as that heel role. So I think we're going to have a better story here and end up having a better matchup. I'm going with a title change here. I think Jeff Cobb is going to beat Shingo. We see the never title in the past has been a title that's easily hot potato and can go back and forth. And so I think you could have Cobb and Shingo feuding throughout the first quarter of the year. Also, if you have Cobb beat Shingo, take the belt off of him, that opens up the potential for Shingo to maybe win New Japan Cup or do something kind of big coming up in the beginning part of the year.
Shingo winning the New Japan Cup. You're saying things that are getting me too excited, Jeremy. Yeah, and don't say stuff like that because they're never going to deliver on it. I pray for that though. Yeah. I agree with everything you guys said here. I don't have much more to add to it. I thought that the segments that they did where, Jeff Cobb, attacked Shingo and stood over him with the belt and left Shingo laying on several occasions, adds to what both you mentioned with the story and, them coming to their own, the heel face dynamic. And I think it makes all the sense in the world for Jeff Cobb to finally get a big singles title here in New Japan. They signed the guy, they might as well go with him. Plus there's the Empire factor. So I think Shingo will be fine. I think that this is Jeff Cobb's moment. I think they're gonna have a really, really great match in the Dome, and I'm really looking forward to this one. This would only be, let's see, this would be Shingo's. Nah, never mind. This one didn't work out. I thought I had a good one, but the history of the Never title is really interesting. And when Jeremy started talking about it bouncing around, I started to look at what the total defenses for each champion looks like, and whether Shingo's coming up on Goto's current record with 7, but he's only at 3. So yeah, it was like 3 or 4 or something like that. Yeah, it was 3, but that was the story of his last reign, is that he was coming up on if he were to have the 4th defense, that's only Tanaka, Suzuki, and Ishii have had 4 defense reigns.
So this is a title that is not defended consecutively many times.
Yeah. So moving on to another title matchup, we have the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles on the line as Suzuki-gun, the champions, El Desperado and Yoshinobu Kanemaru, will defend against the new team of Master Wato and Ryusuke Taguchi. We actually have seen these teams do battle before in that little mini junior tag league earlier this year, which Wato and Taguchi did get a fall over the Suzuki-gun team here. And then during the Road to Tokyo Dome, we've seen Wato pin Kanemaru one night, and the following night Taguchi pinned Kanemaru, which really gave them the claim and stakes here to challenge for these tag titles.
I'll start with this. Last year we saw Roppongi 3K win, right? And then not long after that, we saw them defend against some heel teams, but we also saw a really great match with them and the mega coaches. And that was because in this division, it's easy to do face versus face matches for the title versus heel. We've talked many times about how this is a division that is really lacking in terms of competitors, especially with the COVID restrictions. I just think like they don't really have teams, so they're gonna have to throw people together. And if they're gonna have to throw people together, the team that makes the most sense for me is just Wato and Taguchi. The titles, I mean, if we're talking about hot potato, titles, even more so than the Never Belt is the junior tag titles. And especially at the Tokyo Dome on January 4th and January 5th. I mean, that title changes hands all the time, if my memory serves me correctly. So I don't know. It seems like they're really trying to do something with Wato. It's kind of seemed like that, especially in the World Tag League. And I don't see why not. Like, what harm does it really do if Kanemaru eats a pinfall, Plus, isn't Kanemaru was gone. Isn't he, like, due to like, eat a pin against Wato anyways?
Right. Kanemaru beat him at Summer Struggle in Jingu.
That's the story right there. Wato's going to pin Kanemaru. So, and then they could do a rematch. And, they could pretty much throw whoever they want to together to fight Taguchi and Wato later because they're half a comedy team anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah, I'm also going with Wato and Taguchi winning here. With such little teams, I think these two teams will be probably the main two teams at the beginning part of the year to go back and forth. So you have them win here, and then Suzuki can challenge the next show, and then they can just kind of go back and forth with Despi and Kanemaru against Wato and Taguchi until they can bring some more teams in.
Yeah, I think Wato needs something to establish him with some credibility. Taguchi needs something to do. No shame in them being the guys that carry this belt or these belts for a little bit. I think you're right. They'll throw together some juniors and maybe you get Ishimori and El Phantasmo if Phantasmo is going to be around. That's a team that could certainly credibly challenge for this. Maybe Yo's healthy and he just gets back together with Sho. I mean, I know a lot of people are speculating against that, but that's certainly an option. So yeah, I mean, I think putting him on Wato gives him something to hang his hat on.
Tiger Mask's out there too.
Yeah. Tiger Mask is back.
And then the opener.
Yeah, we have the four-way for the first provisional KOPW 2021 champion. And we have a question here from Grunty Dodds. While we don't know all the participants in the Night 1 Rambo, what is the best case scenario for the KOPW four-way on Night 2?
I mean, I think the best case scenario is that you have a fun, entertaining opening match. I mean, Wrestle Kingdom is usually one of those shows throughout the year that is universally heralded as a show of the year candidate. It's gotten kind of wonky since they've split the two nights up, and so there's a lot of debate as to whether Night 1 or Night 2 is better. Well, I can tell you the opening match of Night 1 is going to be a banger. Night 2, not so much. I'm not totally sure how good this match really can be or will be, so hopefully, I'm not expecting the world, but hopefully it's the opening match of the night, so you want it to be good. So the best case scenario is that it's really good. That's it. It's a good opening, 12-minute, 15-minute match.
Yeah.
Maybe less.
for me, the best case scenario is that something kind of different comes out of it. It's not just a comedy Yano thing. I think that, there's something to opening up the ability to do stipulation matches, but turnbuckle or corner pad matches, like that's not a stipulation to me. Like,
Yeah.
I would like to see them do some interesting stuff. And I think a guy like Suzuki, I think that helps him. Those types of matches potentially help him actually lengthen his career because they're physical in a different way. And I think that they could do something really interesting if they took it that direction, a little bit more serious, but kind of out there still. I don't have a lot of faith that that's what's going to happen because I don't see this little trophy being put on that level or on the pedestal, but I'd love to see it. I think it could be something really interesting.
If hypothetically, like what you're proposing, let's say Suzuki did win. What if Suzuki was like, fuck that, I'm not carrying this little trophy around, and then he brings out the KOPW title belt, you know what I mean? That would be cool. Or maybe it's a towel that he carries, like that just sits on his head, like the KOPW title towel.
Or it's just like you were saying earlier.
Just recognition.
It's a linear thing, right?
Right.
Like he doesn't need a dopey trophy. He doesn't need a belt. He doesn't need a towel. He's the KOPW.
Right. I mean, he already called himself the king, so.
Right.
But remember, it's linear, but also provisional.
But it's linear with an endpoint at the end of the year.
So yeah, I think the best case, I would love to see is something a little bit more serious and a little bit more, creative than the last corner pad standing match. So, but ultimately, I just want a good entertaining matchup, like Josh was saying. And honestly, guys, I think Yano is winning this.
You took the words right out of my mouth. What I want and what we're getting are two totally different things. I feel very confident that Yano is going to win this again. And maybe I'm wrong. And I would gladly be wrong, but I think he's going to win. And I think he's going to continue his never-ending What if that's like the gimmick? What if like he's the never-ending KOPW champion, Remember, like, Mil Mascaras, like, carried his own title for, like, 35 years. I think he still, like, defends it every now and again. Like, Dos Caras has one, too. Like, they've got their own world titles that, like, they own. What if that becomes, like, the deal? Like, Yano's just the KOPW champion, like, in perpetuity, like, forever. And he never drops it. He never jobs the shit.
Oh, my gosh. Could happen.
Like, Chris doesn't even have words. Chris is just like, oh, shit.
I mean, I can't analyze the KOPW guys. It was the first thing we talked about. I gave my hot take that it should go to Minoru Suzuki, and I didn't think I'd have to come back to it a second time.
Yeah, where are the stats for the KOPW?
I mean, they will exist. They do exist. I can put them all together, but I mean, there's only been a couple matches, and they're both kind of dopey. So
there was some talk this past week that there was rumors that. We knew that there was going to be a Stardom match on the pre-show of night 2, but there had been some rumors that there'd been discussion of 2 matches. Well, it was confirmed that there will be 2 dark tag team matches to open up the show. I know I've watched no Stardom this year. Jeremy, I'm pretty sure you've watched no Stardom, right?
I watched a little bit, far less than I did last year.
And I can't speak for Chris. Chris, where are you in the Stardom spectrum?
What's a Stardom? No, I'm kidding. I know what it is. It's not something that's typically on my radar.
All right, let me break this down with what I know, and then I'll leave it to you, Jeremy.
All right.
Okay, so Donna Del Mondo is this new thing. It just started this year. Apparently, it's like the hot new like stable. There's some people that are in it. I think Julia is the leader, right?
Yep.
And I'm guessing that like that hasn't really been confirmed to me, but so it seems like we're getting to start off the night, we're getting a Queen's Quest against Donna Del Mondo, 6-man tags, AZM.
That's Azumi.
Oh, Azumi, my bad. Azumi, Saya Kamitani, and Utami Hayashishida against Himeka, Maika, and Natsupoi. I really don't even know who any of these people are, but it seems like Queen's Quest is kind of on the way out. They used to be the hot shit, and now like Della Donna Del Mondo's kind of taking them over, right? Running them out of town.
I don't know if they're running them out of town, but this was definitely a great year for Donna Del Mondo.
Queen's Quest is washed. And then the match after that, you got the Ace, Mayu Iwatani, and Tam Nakano teaming up against Donna Del Mondo, Julia, and Shuri, which I know all 4 of those names. Those are big names in the company. Isn't there like a deal between Mayu and Tam? Like,
yes, I believe Tam is left Stars and is starting her own faction.
Yeah, so that's kind of the story there. There's like a rift between them, but there's still big. And isn't it kind of like amicable, but not really? Like,
right. It's not like they turn on each other, but Tam just wanted to do her own thing.
Like, Mayu doesn't want her to leave, but Tam's leaving anyways. But they're kind of amicable, but like there's definitely issues because like Mayu does not want her to leave.
Right.
That's what I understand. And, you know, Julia is like all the boys love Julia, and her and Shuri are here to fuck up shit. So, and we're not gonna be able to see any of this anyway. So
yeah,
and which sucks. Which I hope that it ends up on what's Stardom's streaming service?
Stardom World.
Yeah, I hope it ends up on Stardom World. Last year's match did not, and so who knows? We might not be able to see this, but yeah, it's funny though. The whole narrative about them, not announcing any women's matches for the Tokyo Dome, that all quieted down real quick, and I haven't heard anything about people looking forward to seeing this shit. It's weird how a narrative changes so quickly.
Yeah, you know how Twitter works, man.
Man, there was outrage. I saw outrage. Where are the women's matches?
Well, here they are. And still not gonna be able to see them.
Well, if you watched the company, you would have known they're not allowed to air it. I mean, it's almost like they don't watch it and they just wanted to have a narrative. It's weird.
We had a few other questions here from Broken Mug 64. He said, first, what is Haku's problem? I don't think we ever learned what was Haku's problem. He says, who do you think will win Double Gold Dash 2.0, which we already answered. We think Ibushi is winning that. Third question, do you think the Empire should win all their matches at Wrestle Kingdom to assert their dominance?
I will say I that was originally what I was leaning towards, and I could see it happening for sure. But I'm thinking not necessarily. I think, honestly, I think a lot of it just falls on Will. In my personal opinion, I think it lives and dies with him.
I think we'll know if that's going to happen. If Will wins, I don't know. I mean, because Okan's going to have to start it. Cobb's going to have to finish it, and Will's actually got the middle match then. When it comes to putting them in order, should they? Yeah, probably. I mean, if they're going to be a dominant group, especially with those 3, they should absolutely win all their matches. I think that's what they're going to try to do. Will they? I don't know. I have a tough time thinking that they're going to get that level of confidence right now. Instilled in them.
The thing is, is there a scenario where they could end up being dominant and Will wins? Or I'm sorry, Will loses? Yes. But if Will won and everybody else loses, I think they're still good. And so I think the most important match, regardless, is Will and Okada.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, if Will wins, the whole faction can still come off strong. It would look kind of weird if Okan and Cobb both won and then Will didn't win. I think either if they want Empire to be strong, have Will win, or just have all 3 of them win. Moving on to the next question here from Ricky. He says, which match on either night are you looking forward to the most?
Well, for me, for either night?
Yep.
The match I'm most looking forward to is Will Osprey versus Kazushiko Kata. Not only for the in-ring standpoint, and let's be very clear here. You brought up a great point there, Chris, when you mentioned we don't really know from an in-ring standpoint what the top end level of and I'm kind of paraphrasing, but where Will is physically, kind of being in this big boy division. We saw some semblance of it in the G1, but it's very clear we haven't seen his high end level stuff to the same level as we saw, let's say when he was a junior. But is there a possibility that they could go out there and have an Okada Omega level match with the talents involved? yes, there absolutely is that prospect on the table. And that's the only match I see for either night that has that kind of level of prospect. So that's the match I'm most excited about, but not just from the talent standpoint, from the long-term story standpoint. We've been waiting for a new stable to show up, and I think a lot of the success of New Japan is going to be dependent on how successful the Empire is. I'm not saying like everything lives and dies by them, but I mean, it's been a long time since we had a new stable. It's been a long time since we had something that was this exciting. And if it flops, okay, we'll go back to the drawing board. But if it's a success, it could do huge business, which is a big deal. And it could open up so many story avenues, so many different, title opportunities for different individuals. I think that that's something that is way more exciting to me than who's winning the double gold dash, to be totally transparent. So yeah, that's the story I'm most, engrossed by.
By you, Chris?
Okan Tanahashi, I'm just so intrigued by. So I don't know. I don't really know what it's going to be, what it's going to mean, but I think it's going to set up what the rest of the Empire matches are going to look like. And I'm very intrigued by the match, and I really desperately want to be right about that one, that it's going to be awesome, that Okan's going to look good, regardless of the result. Tanahashi in the Dome, hard to bet against him, right? But I'm so very much looking forward to that. Because I think it's going to tell us a lot about where we're headed.
I agree. I think that's a great pick.
I'm really looking forward to Ibushi versus Naito. Those guys have wild and crazy matches, and I feel like it's going to be the first time in a long time that we've gotten an IWGP title match that feels the level, to quote Kozushiko Kata, the level of IWGP title match. I think it's going to start the year off great with title matches, and yeah, it's going to have amazing chemistry. So I'm really looking forward to that closing.
Nice.
Next questions here from Muzza. What are the chances of the Empire winning all their matches, and has this ever happened in Wrestle Kingdom where a faction won all their matches at Wrestle Kingdom or any January 4th show?
I feel like I should know the answer to that.
Didn't LIJ win all their matches last year?
No, they haven't.
Well, Sonata lost to Sabre, yeah.
I don't know the answer to this, but I'm going to tell you based off of just the statistics I'm running in my head. No faction has ever done that. Because, I mean, think about it. Like, what are the chances a faction has ever won every single match at Wrestle Kingdom?
Especially on bigger cards where it's like 12 matches. And
it's highly unlikely, especially, and let's be technical here. Let's include those Rambos and those, gauntlets. I think the statistics are on my side. No one's ever done that. Probably. And if someone did do it, who cares? It's really not that impressive of a stat. I mean, 3 matches. It's not that big a deal. It is kind of cool, but it's not like they're the one faction that won all their matches at Wrestle Kingdom. No one cares about that stat. It's not a good stat.
But I do think the Empire does have a good chance of winning all 3 of their matches, though.
Sure. The most
Chaos had a really good night. Wrestle Kingdom 12.
Did they do them all?
So they won the Never Gauntlet. They won. Goto beat Suzuki for Never Openweight. Osprey won the Junior Heavyweight. And Okada won the Heavyweight over Naito. And they weren't in... Roppongi 3K lost the Junior Heavyweight Championship match
to the Young Bucks. Remember, that was around the time when Jay White, the next month, he won the U.S. belt, and then all of Chaos, had all the belts, and they took the photo. That was really famous. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Roppongi 3K dropping the ball there.
Yeah.
That was a good night for Chaos, but that's still not everything. Jay White also lost to Tanahashi that night too. So, close. That's probably about as close as it comes. As far as I'm thumbing through here.
Muzza said, "What is your low-key favorite match of Wrestle Kingdom?" His is Sonata Evil, despite Evil's lack of good matches recently. Well, that is not my low-key favorite match of Wrestle Kingdom. I think the real answer here is the Rambo. I fucking love the Rambo. It's been a long time since we got one, and I think it's one of the funnest things. But aside from like low key, if I'm being serious, it's probably the answer that Chris gave. Tanahashi and Okan. I'm really looking forward to that.
I think we all know what my low-key favorite's going to be.
God.
I'm looking forward to Kojima versus Kenta.
Bro, you gotta wear the Kojima shirt I bought you.
Yeah, I'm gonna wear that. I'm gonna be eating a piece of bread and just hoping and praying.
Some dry ass white bread.
Bro, you gotta get a loaf of fucking Wonder Bread and just be like hammering Wonder Bread.
You could eat the whole thing over the course of the 12 to 15 minute match.
Yes.
You can't toast it either. You gotta eat it raw.
No butter.
It hopes that Kojima pulls up the upset and just catches Kenta with the strongest arm, and we get a briefcase change at the Dome, and we set up Kenta versus Mox because Mox fears Kojima.
Awesome. Did you have a low key favorite, Chris?
I mean, I guess Okan and Tanahashi, I guess that's low key, but I think El Phantasmo Hiromu, if I've got to pick something else, that's gonna be a banger.
Yeah.
Regardless, especially if Phantasmo doesn't lean so heavy towards his everything he did in the Super J Cup, if Hiromu can kind of offset that, that's gonna be a really fun match, and I think it's gonna really set up the two nights and what we're going to see. And I think that they're going to get the crowd as involved as they possibly can and really engaged, whatever that may look like in a limited capacity, potentially different setup for the Dome. So I'm really excited to see that. The first match on Wrestle Kingdom is always something to see because you're kind of, even watching it on a screen, you're taking it all in. So that's my jam right there.
Nice. Well, those are all the questions. That is the preview. I think we did a really good job here in a timely manner.
Yeah. So just have a few news items here that we'll run through pretty quickly here. So we had we kind of mentioned it in talking in the preview here. New Japan is going to be heading to Osaka-jo Hall for a new event February 2021 called Castle Attack, which will be a 2-night event at Osaka-jo Hall in Osaka, Japan in February. Night 1 will take place on Saturday, February 27th, and night 2 will take place on Sunday, February 28th. Then the Road to Castle Attack tour begins 4 nights at Korakuen Hall in Tokyo from February 14th to 17th. Something else that we mentioned that we didn't get a chance to cover last week, Toru Yano defeated Bad Luck Fale in the Body Slam or Last Corner Pad match at the Road to Tokyo Dome show to become the KOPW 2020 champion. We had CEO Sugabayashi noting that since they've restarted at a regular schedule, there have been more than 100,000 paying spectators at shows, and there has not been one transmitted case of COVID stemming from a New Japan event.
Well, reported. Let's be fair. Reported through contact tracing. It's not that it's not happened. It's definitely possible one could have happened.
Right, but yeah, through the contact tracing, a New Japan event has not been to blame for a case of COVID.
Which is, beyond impressive.
Yeah. We also had the return of the New Japan Concorso, the bodybuilding contest. Very disappointed there was no Peter in the contest this year.
They announced the winner, didn't they?
They did?
They did, yeah. It was Kota Ibushi.
It's Kota Ibushi.
There we go.
Which, I don't know, man.
Triple gold dash.
Come on. Show was so fucking ripped out there.
It's pretty ripped.
It needed to be Show. Who won it last year? Was it Show? I think it was.
I thought Peter won last year, didn't he?
Come on, no. This is a real serious competition.
Only in your heart.
I think they gave Tanahashi and Ishimori second and third place.
Yeah.
Sho didn't even place, but he won it last year, which leads me to believe that this thing is rigged because he's in better shape this year than he was last year.
Are you saying this will work?
I believe it might be. Something's not on the up and up. It's not right.
Last thing here, the free match of the week is the IC title match, Kota Ibushi versus Shinsuke Nakamura, Wrestle Kingdom 9, Tokyo Dome. It's free on YouTube and New Japan World.
It's mid.
Get out.
It's only one of the greatest matches in the history of not just New Japan, but wrestling in general.
Yeah.
It's the match that changed my life. Like, I saw that match and I was like, this is my shit. I'm in. Let's go.
Well, I'm going to send you my match from my training match from a few weeks ago, and that was
probably going to change my life somehow. I'll run your numbers.
Oh, yeah, let me send it to you. How much time was he on offense? 30 seconds. How much time was he on defense? 6 minutes and 45 seconds.
Josh Smith is 0-1 in matches.
Josh Smith was 2 for 2 in attempted strikes. He was 0-2 for pinfalls.
But he tried.
All right, we have a few quick questions here that we could run to and then get to the recommended match of the week. Question from Rambo and Slam Pig. With the untimely passing of Brody Lee, we'll never get a chance to see him work a NJPW tour. If he was able to do so, who would you most have wanted to see him match up with?
Tomohiro Ishii, easily. That's always been the match I wanted to see him have. To be fair, that's the match I want everybody to have. So it's kind of the cheat all answer, but that's the one.
What about you, Chris?
I think a Jay White match could have been really good. I think complementary styles there.
I'm going to go with Will Osprey. I don't think those guys have ever wrestled each other, and we've seen what Osprey did with Archer before Archer left the company. I think that big man, little man dynamic, even though Osprey's a little bit bigger now, I still think that could be a great dynamic. And he also asked, what was your favorite Tokyo Dome main event to date?
Oh, that's a really tough question. I think for me, man, it's really tough. There's so many. I'm going to say Wrestle Kingdom 10, Tanahashi and Okada, when Okada finally beat Tanahashi and ascended and really became the ace.
Man, that's tough. Shoot. I mean, I want to go Okada Tanahashi 9 because
that one's so good.
The tragedy.
Yeah, there's nothing.
And where it ended up, I mean, knowing where it goes from there, that's such a moment.
Okada getting carried out and crying, and Tanahashi telling him he's still not on his level is all time.
Yeah, that was a great moment. For me, I'm going with Omega and Okada from Wrestle Kingdom 11. Just
Can't go wrong.
The start of a series of just some of the best matches I've ever seen. So, gonna go with that.
I mean, dude, Tanahashi Muto is up there. There's so many.
They're all up there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Tanahashi and Nakamura.
Show me a bad Wrestle Kingdom or Tokyo Dome main event. It's tough. Those are tough to find.
I can find one, but it's going to be pre-Wrestle Kingdom. I believe most of the Wrestle Kingdoms have been pretty good, except for maybe the first one, which was that weird tag match.
Oh yeah, that was weird.
Next question here from Maserati says, what safeguards will you implement next year that prevents outcomes in the voting to occur, such as Naito winning Fighting Spirit Award, such as must not wrestle in a t-shirt this percentage of their matches?
We did make a joke where we said next year it's not going to be open voting. It's going to be closed voting where you have to listen to the show and basically reach out to us and request a ballot, and we will privately send you one. But we're not going to actually do that. We're going to do the same shit because your guys' voices were heard, and I think that the right people won, even if I disagree with 80% of our votes.
Question from Staleburger Bun. He said, since you've already answered every variant of what's going to happen at Wrestle Kingdom question there is, where would you take Yoshihashi on a first date and why?
Well, I would take Yoshihashi to the exact same places that I take all my first dates, because they're always great and he deserves the best. So that would be roller skating at Astro Skate. Afterwards, we would, catch a drive-in movie theater together. Why are you laughing? There's some Starbucks on the way, Stop at the Dollar Tree, and I would tell him that he can get as much candy as he wants because it's $1, which always goes over well. And then head back to my place.
Oh man, Chris, can you
nightcap?
Listen, I wouldn't take Yoshihashi anywhere on a first date because I'm a married man. But I would invite Yoshihashi over because he is quite the winner in a trio.
I'm thinking that
Nothing? No pop for that? Come on.
he is the trio. I think I would take him to everybody's favorite restaurant in Japan, TGIF Fridays. After he has a great performance in the Rambo, I'd treat him to some apps.
I take him to Clearwater Beach,
brother. Next question here from Dom Homie 101. He says, I was recently listening to the Joe Budden podcast, and there was a conversation about where music is going and what will music industry look like in the next 3 to 4 years. So I have a similar question about wrestling. Where do you guys see the whole wrestling industry going? What will the wrestling industry look like? Who will be the top stars of the industry? Who will still be part-time in the business? Will there still be a part-time in the business? Which companies will have high periods and which companies will go through low periods? Will we see another major company come to light? Will there even be an indie scene? Will we see more wrestlers going Hollywood?
That's an awesome question, honestly. And I'm not just saying that panderingly. It actually is. But to be fair, that is like a whole podcast.
Right, yeah.
That's a huge question.
Yeah, I think we could.
That's a huge question. It's an awesome question. You're right. So I'll give a brief overview. So my background is in the music industry.
Oh.
I was a touring musician for a long time. So kind of when the music industry was transitioning between physical and digital media, and between really music being just the avenue of getting your name out there versus being the thing that actually paid your bills, wrestling has been heading in the same direction in certain ways, but
correct.
It's very slowly.
Yeah.
Because wrestling is still very much the old guard, right? So, the question that sticks out to me is, will there even be an indie scene? And I think that answer is always going to be yes, because there's always going to be counterculture within any community. And I think that that's what the indie scene serves as. And it also gives people opportunity who haven't necessarily established themselves. There has to be some semblance of an indie scene because not everyone's going to get booked on Dark or Strong.
I don't know, man.
So
there's like 13 matches on Dark.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Chris. I think that those are some great observations. I can't answer all of this, and I don't like to pretend to know what any one company is going to do. But the one thing I think is probably what's heading for the future is the corporation of wrestling. I know for the most part, the major corporate players have, for the most part been Titan Sports and maybe Bushiroad in the past couple of years. But with the way that everything is moving more towards digital, and, at this point, I would say the WWE Network is pretty much a failed experiment, but it's very clear that things are moving towards streaming and digitalization. And really it's about creating content and providing that for people. And ultimately that's what the wrestling industry is going to live and die by. Right now it's all based on TV rights and ad revenue and everything like that. And we're already seeing what Cyber Agent is doing. We've seen the rise of AEW. I think that these big players are pretty much getting their foothold now. And I think it's going to be hard for anyone else to get a foothold. But it's going to come down to who can offer a product that people are willing to pay for, and that's something that a lot of companies haven't been able to do. Namely, you say Impact, they were never able to convert their audience in the past. I think AEW is doing an okay job of it. They're converting about 150 people into pay-per-view. But I think long-term streaming is where everything is going, and someone's got to figure that out, and Vince hasn't figured it out. and New Japan hasn't figured it out, and someone's going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And when they do, I think they're going to corner the market, and it remains to be seen.
And the part of this question that I'll touch on real quickly, yes, we'll see more wrestlers going to Hollywood. Yes, I think we will be seeing. There's a lot less bumps to take in Hollywood, and I think people are realizing what their star powers are. We've seen Sasha Banks this year in The Mandalorian. We've seen Roman Reigns in that Fast and Furious spinoff with Rock and Jason Statham. So I do think we will see, as guys kind of hit their peaks in WWE, I think they'll transition to try and follow the Rock's game plan, transition over into Hollywood. There's a lot more money to be made there, and it's a lot less dangerous.
Yeah, that's a tough question. I wish we could do a whole podcast on it. But we got one last question from Maple Leaf Wrestling History Podcast. Shout out to those guys. He asked, I've recently found out about Dynamite Kid, Bruiser Brody, Tajiri, and Nakamura all having biographies that are not in English. So I was wondering if any of you guys could give me some Puro book recommendations, please.
Well, I mean, I think the books that Chris Charlton does are excellent. There's Eggshells and Lion's Pride. I think those are great. Chris right there holding up the Eggshells book right there. Those are two great Puro books that I would recommend.
Yeah, the Young Bucks book, the Kenny Omega book, those are really good Puro books. No, I'm just joking.
I've heard the Young Bucks book has a lot of good stories from Japan.
No, yeah. I've actually heard that book's very good. To be honest with you, I don't know that much about like autobiographies or anything like that from Japan. The one that I've heard people tell me was very good is one that you mentioned there, the Nakamura book. Is supposed to be very, very good. And I think they were working on, or maybe they did release it in English, like English translation. So, but I think I've also heard Dynamite Kid's book is good, but I'm not too familiar. I wish, I don't know. We only have so much time to watch all this stuff. It's hard to read all of it too.
Yeah.
Todd Martin at PW Torch, he does all of their book reviews, and he does a lot of book reviews. So if you Google Todd Martin PW Torch, you'll find his book review list, and he doesn't like rank them, he just puts them in tiers. So like top tier, second tier, third tier. I would thumb through that as a guideline. Very potentially there's some Japanese wrestling resources in there. If not, it's really just a great list, and he has pretty good taste.
I also would recommend the Voices of Wrestling Year-End New Japan ebook.
What am I doing?
Which Chris and I will both have work featured in.
Here's the reason I don't care about that, because I'm not getting any money out of it because I didn't contribute in any way, so I don't care. But I know you guys are shills for yourselves, so.
Yeah, so you can check out, the Voice of Wrestling Year-End ebook. Tons of great stuff there.
No, seriously, though, in all seriousness, the New Japan Year-End ebook, every year that they put it out, it's so phenomenal. Not only because of all the records and all of the stats and everything like that, but you also have all of these really impassioned and awesome, essays that people within the fandom and the community have written, and every single ebook that they've ever put out there, it's still available, and they're they do ask that you can get them for free if you like to, but they ask that you give what you think is fair when you download them. So, I mean, they're all available. I would recommend that you get all of them, honestly, because they're really good resources. They're very factually accurate. So if you're ever needing like almost like an encyclopedia or like a reference work when it comes to New Japan, I mean, you're not going to find a compiled work better than the New Japan Year-End ebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can attest we put a ton of work into that ebook to make sure everything's as right as it possibly can be, not just from the stats perspective, but from the biographies that they write about everyone's year. All the contributors are awesome. All the essays are great. I will say that this year's ebook is a little less of a fan service book. It's a little more, there are more pieces that are critical. And I think that that's important. I think it's important that we, that Voices of Wrestling is able to kind of look at things in a way that really represents the fan base and the voices of this past year. So, and the foreword this year from Jon Moxley, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It's, just to see Jon Moxley write a foreword for a book is kind of cool. Cause if you know anything about him, he's not much a writer. He's not much for many words, but, he did a really nice job. I'm really excited for people to get their hands on it and take a look at it.
One last thing, Kyle, there was a book, I forgot about it and I just remembered it. I've never read it, but I've heard good things. It's called Japan, the Rikidozan Years, 1951 to 1963, based on what you do. I think that's something that might be right up your alley. I think it's on Amazon, so, check it out. I'm not personally endorsing it, but I am telling you I've heard good things about it.
Nice. Well, last thing we have here is the recommended match of the week. Last week we had Rich Craich on, and he recommended for us to watch Tanahashi vs. Okada from Invasion Attack 2013. Watch it before we record here, and just an awesome match. Like we said, you can't go wrong with Okada, Tanahashi. Just such great storytelling there. Tanahashi working over the Rainmaker arm, attacking the arms throughout the match. Okada attacking Tanahashi's head and neck, using his various Yave submissions there, using the red ink submission, and really working over the neck of Okada until finally being able to hit the Rainmaker and regain the title.
I love this match series. It's my favorite feud in the history of New Japan, and this may be, it's not my favorite match of theirs necessarily, but it's right up there. I think it's a 5-star match, and like you mentioned, the attack on the arm, so much played into the previous encounters, especially the previous match they had just had at Wrestle Kingdom 7 that year, which is also another incredible Wrestle Kingdom main event. And, at this point, like Okada scouting every single big Tanahashi move, learning from the mistakes that he made in the Tokyo Dome, and, basically having every single one of those big moves and moments of Tanahashi like ready to be countered. And then Tanahashi kind of abandoning the different strategies that he'd used against Okada in the previous matches. And instead of going after the leg, let's say, he decided to go after that Rainmaker arm like you mentioned. And that was like his whole focus, his whole sole purpose. And I mean, he destroyed that arm, and Okada just does a masterful job selling the arm all throughout the match. And like it tells such a compelling story. And ultimately, like, it doesn't matter like how great Tanahashi is, doesn't matter how high he's riding, like the greatness of Okada cannot be denied on this night, and he still cleanly overcomes all the odds and puts Tanahashi down with the Rainmaker. But also, I think this is the first time anybody kicked out of a Rainmaker. I could be wrong on that, but I think it was the first time. And that was like the crowd fucking erupted like so hard seeing Tanahashi kick out of that Rainmaker, which was like, now people kick out of it, every once. Well, who knows? It's been gone for a while. So who knows when it comes back? But, for a while people were kicking out of it, but now who knows,
Yeah.
But yeah, this match is incredible. It was a great recommendation, and if you've never seen it, I recommend this match as well as the rest of the Tanahashi Okada series. It's recommended viewing.
And now Chris will give us our recommended match of the week for this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a really awesome mid-card Wrestle Kingdom match. I'm going to go with Hiroki Goto versus Minoru Suzuki from Wrestle Kingdom 12 in a hair versus hair, no seconds death match, because I think it was awesome. I think the end of the match was cool. I think the result was really cool. And I think that it speaks to the level of matches you can anticipate from Wrestle Kingdom.
I haven't seen this. I literally haven't seen this match since Wrestle Kingdom 12 when I watched it live. Because I didn't need to, because the imagery was so like vivid, like, and vibrant in my head, and like it's still there. And yeah, like I can't wait to watch it again. I hope it still holds up.
I love that match.
Yeah, it's a good one. I've gone back to Wrestle Kingdom 12 a couple times just to have something on while I plug stuff in, and it is one of my favorite cards. And every time the end of that match rolls around, I'm captivated by the whole situation. So
the only thing I don't like about the match is the hangman spot. Like clearly this man was dead. But we'll give you guys our review next week, and that is going to do it. I apologize to everybody. Last week we had a 4-hour show. I don't know what happened there, but thank you guys for returning. And this is always like one of our most listened to shows of the year. Chris, thank you so much for coming on. I think you've got some stuff to plug and everything like that, right?
Just sportofprowrestling.com, and of course that NJPW ebook, because that lines my pockets for the year. But yeah, those are. I'll keep it short and sweet. Obviously, Twitter, the Chris Samsa, and you can hear my work via the voice of Kevin Kelly. Hopefully during Wrestle Kingdom, if I can come up with some interesting stuff. But I think I've workshopped enough tonight that I think I'm gonna have some stuff to send along.
Nice. Sounds good, man. Thanks so much for coming on again. Next week, we'll be back to review both nights of Wrestle Kingdom 15. If you enjoy, yeah, it's going to be awesome. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation. You can visit socialsuplex.com/donate. Click on that donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is @KIStrongStyle. The network's @Social Suplex. You can follow me @Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, we are facebook.com/Social Suplex. You can join us in the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group, facebook.com/group/Wrestling Squared Circle. On Instagram, we are @Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. I'm just keeping it strong style. You can email me, jeremy@socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We have One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. We have the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show from Scotland. We have the Grave Consequences podcast with Caleb and Maserati. We have the 8-Bit Suplex with Josh Number 2 and Sandy. All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. And the Great Match Generator with Danny and Beast Mike. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Wrestle Kingdom season.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.